B10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon and a happy Friday to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show. Here on GB News, we're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, the Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff and, of course, the Partygate investigator, Sue Gray. Kel Surprise has been nominated to be a Labour peer in the House of Lords. We'll get full reaction to this breaking news story throughout the show. Jobs for the boys and the girls. Talking of which, Lord Peter Mandelson is set to become the next UK ambassador to the United States. But it's the former arch Remainer and the man who once described the President-elect Donald Trump as a danger to the world, really the right man for the job. And earlier today, I paid a seasonal visit to the BBC.
It'll be freezing this Christmas without you at home.
They loved it. They were waving at us. Seriously, well, I think they were waving. They were certainly giving us some hand gestures. Yeah, that was me at the BBC headquarters earlier today, blasting out the song Freezing This Christmas out of the Christmas charts. Countdown later on. Can it make it to number one? It's around about 5:30 p.m. this afternoon. That's announced. I'll speak to the song's creator, Chris Middleton, to get his reaction as soon as we have that announcement. And that's all coming in today's show. Was the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. Can you believe that the BBC has said they're going to refuse to play Freezing This Christmas if it gets to number one? The Bar Humbug Broadcasting Corporation, they banned God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols in 1977. Too spicy, they said. They banned Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood for similar reasons, and now they're saying they're going to ban this. And that's because they simply don't like the message. That song could be this year's number one in about 2.5 hours' time. I'll have the creator of that song, Chris Middleton, on the show. Whether he wins or whether he loses, many people think he's already a winner. He's raised getting on for £36,000 for old people. Every single penny from the crowdfunder and every single penny from the proceeds of that song sales will go towards helping British pensioners stay warm this winter. Get in touch usual ways, GBNews.com/your say. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Mark White.
Good afternoon. It's just 2 minutes past 3. 2 men have been charged with assaulting police officers following an incident at Manchester Airport in July. The 2 men, Mohammed Amaz, who is 20, is charged with 2 offences of causing actual bodily harm, 1 charge of assaulting an emergency worker and another of common assault. 25-year-old Mohammed Ahmad is charged with causing actual bodily harm. They'll appear at Liverpool Magistrates Court on the 16th of January. The Crown Prosecution Service said no police officers would face criminal charges. However, the police watchdog has confirmed it's still investigating possible police misconduct. Lord Mandelson is to become the UK's next ambassador to the United States. The Labour peer, who served under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, will take up the Washington appointment as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is understood to believe the Labour veteran has the trade expertise and networking abilities to bring the UK and America closer together. Dame Karen Pierce, the current ambassador, is expected to remain in post until Donald Trump's inauguration on the 20th of January. The Met Office and the RAC are warning travellers to prepare for disruptive weather and extremely busy roads as the Christmas holiday begins. Yellow warnings for high winds have been issued, and parts of the UK could see the gusts reaching up to 85 miles an hour. Millions of drivers are now starting their journeys, with motoring agencies warning of very heavy congestion on main roads. The RAC estimates that more than 29 million journeys will be made in the run-up to Christmas Day, around half happening this weekend. Well, today in particular has been branded Frantic Friday. National Highways said the agency will remove road restrictions on 95% of roads that they manage to help ease congestion. The Prime Minister says council should get on with the job of fixing potholes plagued roads. Sir Keir Starmer said damaged roads can risk lives and cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for car repairs. He made the comments as the Department of Transport announced how much each local authority in England will receive to maintain roads in the next financial year. The Treasury announced in the budget in October that total local road maintenance funding for the next year will be nearly £1.6 billion, representing £500 million of an uplift compared with the previous 12 months. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander said the increase should be enough to fix around 7 million potholes.
We will be releasing 75% of this funding next year to start off with, and we withhold 25% to ensure that councils are reporting back to us on how they are using that money, because we know that some roads at the moment are like obstacle courses, aren't they? You've got huge craters in them, and so what we need to make sure is that those really big safety problems are being tackled first and foremost, but we want councils as well to think strategically about how they use this money in the best way, because it's really important that we get good value for money.
The Department for Health and Social Care has announced a package of GPs to help bring back the family doctor. The government is consulting with the British Medical Association on measures including the largest boost to GP funding in years and reducing outdated targets to free up time. Measures also include greater flexibility to employ doctors as the Health Secretary vows to reform general practice. Health and Social Care Minister Stephen Kinnock said the plans will deliver better outcomes for patients.
Package of £889 million of investment that we're bringing forward today is really going to help to fix that front door. But investment always has to come with reform. So the negotiations that we'll be launching with the BMA will be based on busting all the bureaucracy and the red tape that they have to deal with. There'll be a patients' charter so patients know what they can expect from the practice that they're registered with. There's going to be much better online access, and we're going to bring back the family doctor. We're going to incentivise surgeries to ensure that people are seeing the same doctor, because that's what gets much better outcomes for them.
And finally, a fully coloured waxwork of Sir Elton John performing his famous keyboard handstand has been unveiled at Madame Tussauds in London. The figures being unveiled as the 77-year-old superstar releases his Disney Plus documentary celebrating the end of his lengthy touring career. Madame Tussauds said the waxwork is one of its most complex to date, having worked with Sir Elton since he sat for his first figure in 1976. It replicates Sir Elton with his legs in the air and his hands on his keyboard as the Midsummer Music One-Day Festival at Wembley took place in 1975. Not long before, of course, Martin Daubney gets his own waxwork. Probably not as sparkly, but just as exciting, I'm sure.
Oh, my, that was beautiful, my wife. Thank you very, very much. Well, I'm not a waxworks dummy. Look, someone's got their hand on my jacket making me talk. Let's move on quickly. Sue Gray, the civil servant who investigated Partygate and went on, of course, to become Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff. She's just been made a life peer as part of the Prime Minister's 30 new appointments as he attempts to swing the House of Lords towards his political leanings. And meanwhile, Lord Peter Mandelson is set to become the next UK ambassador to the United States, with a Cabinet Minister describing him as a really good fit for the role. Now, Lord Mandelson, who served in the cabinets of Sir Tony Blair, of course, and Gordon Brown, is poised to be the UK's next top diplomat in Washington, marking a significant appointment as Donald Trump returns, of course, to the White House on January the 20th. However, is the man who once described Donald Trump as a danger to the world and little short of a white nationalist and a racist really the right man to represent us in the United States? Well, I'm delighted to say a Christmas bonus. I'm joined by GBNews' political editor, Chris Hope, in the studio. Chris, we said farewell yesterday. Great to see you.
It was emotional. I couldn't stay away, Martin.
Same here, tear-stained pillow. You're back today. Let's start with the peerages. Everybody complains about the peerages every year. Oh, they're stacking the upper chamber full of their own political appointments. But Sue Gray, has to be said, does in particular raise eyebrows. She departed the Starmer government under something of a cloud, and yet she's been given the top gong. Tell us more.
Yeah, Sue Gray, former Chief of Staff to the PM and former Cabinet Office second permanent secretary, has got a peerage. There's 30 Labour peers, around 6 Tory ones. Let's go through them. I think Sue Gray may have got something anyway, frankly. Her length of service in Whitehall would have got her something, I imagine. Maybe not a peerage. So, yes, I mean, people that she was obviously moved out after a power struggle within Number 10. Morgan McSweeney has got her job. He's much more of a political choice as Chief of Staff, and arguably some of the political missteps they took during the summer and early autumn are ending as this party gets used to being government, but also working out what messages it wants to push very hard with voters. As Wendy Alexander, she's the sister of Douglas Alexander, the Labour cabinet or Labour minister, and others too. You've got Therese Coffey on the Tory side, Rachel McLean, former Tory MPs.
Oh, yeah.
I thought there's 2 interesting ones there which you weren't expecting. Toby Young, he's the director of the Free Speech Union. That's interesting. He is someone who fights hard for freedom of speech. He talks a lot on GB News.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a fan favourite for some of our viewers and listeners. A bit like Claire Fox, he's someone who speaks out on behalf of just all of us, really, protecting free speech against the state, and that's to be welcomed. And also Nigel Bigger, an academic who has spoken out against critics of the British Empire. So while these lists always seem to frustrate and annoy in equal measure, there are some indications there that it's not entirely a Labour-slanted list.
And I think it's fair to say hats off to Toby Young, an individual who started, of course, Free School, a Conservative, very outspoken. They tried to cancel his career on repeated times. As a consequence, he was driven to start the Free Speech Union and has championed many people who've been found themselves on the receiving end of cancel culture. And I think a lot of people will say hats off, that's well-deserved.
The row is breaking out, as it always does about this piece. So Labour sources tell GB News this hour the Tories stuffed the House of Lords, creating a serious imbalance in the chamber. This needs to be corrected, they say, to drive through the government's plan for change and deliver our mandate for the British people. They're committed to overdue programme reform and have laid legislation to remove the right of hereditary peers, around 80 of them, to sit and vote in the Lords. For the Tory side, very briefly, Andrew Griffiths, the frontbencher, says peerages should never be rewards for failure. Someone who is principled, articulate and made a contribution to multiple aspects of public life, including education and journalism and free speech, is Toby Young. So you've got the Tories welcoming Toby Young there. So as ever, there's something for everything. It's a smorgasbord, this list of the...
Everybody will always complain that the House of Lords is getting stuffed with people they don't agree with. That's an annual fixture. Let's move on.
You're waiting for your phone call, Martin. I'm sure you might have to wait a bit longer for now.
I'm available for pantomime. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But let's talk about Lord Mandelson. Mandy, as I used to call him back in the day. Now, a character shrouded in controversy, shrouded in the dark arts of spin. And this strikes me, there's the good, there's the bad and the ugly. The good, potentially, he's dallied with the idea of using Nigel Farage as some kind of bridgehead, the Trump whisperer. The bad, of course, another Labour embarrassment, archived comments dug up, calling Trump a danger to the world, little short of a white nationalist and a racist. And potentially the ugly, there are very strong links to the Jeffrey Epstein situation. So this is something which is already causing a huge amount of talk.
Let's go through that then briefly. The good, yeah, I agree. I think he's a political operator. He's the first political appointment to this role in Washington, being our chief diplomat facing our closest ally in America. I think he's somebody who knows how to make things work. He knows how the wheels of power, the levers of power work in the European Union. He was a trade commissioner. He's three times, I think, held big jobs in the cabinet. He's close to Morgan McSweeney.
Yep.
He's a man you never heard of. He's vital, though, because he's the chief of staff to Keir Starmer, knows him. I think the old gang is getting back together who used to govern under Tony Blair. You've also got Jonathan Powell as a national security advisor. So I think, yes, I think he's interesting. I think if you look at who it could have been, it's not someone who's in the deep state, a former spy, for example, who was mooted. It's not someone in the civil service. It's someone who is political. And that's what Trump is. Trump's a deal maker, and he can shrug off the criticism from the past. I would forgive him that. In terms of the bad, I would forgive him the historic remarks. He hasn't been really in politics.
Well, they've all done it.
Yeah, but he wasn't.
A lot of them are called
Trump
MP
at the time. I think
point.
it's different now with people. The members, a third of the cabinet made remarks about Trump back in the day. A lot of them want to be the next government. If you want to do that, don't be worried about a guy who could be back in the White House. I think Mandelson never really thought he'd be back at the front line in this way. The opportunity's come up, and it's to be welcomed, I think, on behalf of the UK. And I think also he wants to get close to Farage. He's unlike other people, but the other parties don't say this publicly.
Unlikely alliance, Mandy and Nigel Farage.
He wants to do a deal, and he knows that the UK has got a big choice to make next year, Martin, between the European Union going close to there. There's a big summit on the 3rd of February with all 27 leaders. There's the tete-a-tete with...
Well, Mandy was a foaming at the mouth ultra Remainer,
yes,
has to be said.
And so was Liz Truss.
Yeah.
I mean, people have moved on since then. Liz Truss was a Remainer. She became a Brexiteer. Why can't Peter Mandelson, although we haven't heard him yet talk up the benefits of Brexit, like Liz Truss? But I think, and the ugly, you mentioned there, finally the ugly, there are questions he must answer about Jeffrey Epstein and his relationship and friendship with him, such as it was. I think he's going to be putting all of his money, his finances, into a blind trust, as he should do. But other questions to answer, both for him and the Prime Minister.
OK, well, stick with us, Chris Hope. Excellent summary there of as ever, the annual controversial appointments. And let's speak further now with the former Labour advisor, Kevin Marr. Kevin, welcome to the show and a very Merry Christmas to you. Christmas came early, it seems, as well, for Sue Gray. Eyebrows have been raised already.
Well, there's 30 Labour peers that have been appointed. They're a mixture of the kind of apparatchik class Labour people. Deborah Mattinson, Keir Starmer's former Director of Strategy, was one of them. Angie Hunter, of course, used to do a similar role to Sue Gray for Tony Blair in the early days of the new Labour government. And a lot of people from trade union backgrounds, including a former General Secretary of the TUC and a Deputy General Secretary of the TUC. So these people are kind of familiar political operators. And any government appoints people to the Lords for two reasons. One is to balance or rebalance the number of peers in the House of Lords, and there is an imbalance. It doesn't reflect the kind of the sweep that Labour had in the July election. So there's a need to rebalance, but also it's a pool of potential ministers as well. And a lot of these people are, incredibly seasoned and effective. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of the people that are appointed today make their way onto into government roles, Minister of State, usually for technical issues, Minister for Housing, Minister for Transport, things like that. And it wouldn't surprise me in due course if that in fact was the career trajectory of Sue Gray. It wouldn't surprise me if she turned up as a Labour minister at some stage as well. So I think there's a purpose there for having her in the Lords, in that she's obviously a great operator in Whitehall, and I suspect that her skills will not be left to wither on the shelf.
Yeah, maybe you're right. They'll drape her in ermine, stick her in the corner for a few years, and who knows, she might return. Stranger things have happened. Talking of which, a hugely unlikely return, perhaps Peter Mandelson, Mandy, hove back into view. And even more unlikely, perhaps, he's saying here that Sir Keir Starmer should perhaps utilise Nigel Farage. Now, as political alliances go, that would be very, very unexpected. Metaphorically, of course, Peter Mandelson jumping into bed with Nigel Farage.
We live in strange times. Peter Mandelson's probably had more comebacks than Frank Sinatra. This will be the third Labour Prime Minister that he served. Obviously, cabinet minister, very much an acolyte of Tony Blair. Daggers drawn for lots and lots of years with Gordon Brown, until Gordon Brown actually went to Mandelson and made friends again and brought him right back into the heart of government as the first Secretary of State and effectively Deputy Prime Minister for the last 18 months or so of Gordon Brown's tenure. So Mandelson is the great survivor of British politics, and that's partly because he is really good at the game of politics. And Chris was saying a minute ago that this is a really political appointment. The ambassador's role is usually reserved for kind of seasoned diplomats and ex-spooks and the like. But Keir Starmer is sending a very clear signal that he wants to be taken seriously by President Trump, that he's got his man leading the operation in Washington on behalf of Starmer. And I think Keir Starmer spies an early opportunity here as well to try and cement good relations with Donald Trump. I mean, there's nobody going to be running the ship in Germany. They've got a federal election that's coming up. So I think Keir Starmer will be pushing in the door very early and using Peter Mandelson to help him to do that. And of course, there's an awful lot riding on this relationship. The special relationship needs a lot of pump priming, and I think Keir Starmer's very aware of that. And we've got the prospect of a US trade deal, which is a really big ticket issue. And of course, Peter Mandelson used to be an EU trade commissioner, so his skills will be useful there. But it's the big issue.
Is it worth, Kevin? Can I just interrupt your handsome flow there, so to speak, and ask you this question: is there anybody that's seen in the Labour Party that hasn't called Donald Trump some kind of fascist or white supremacist? It seems to be part of the job description now. You think Trump's a fascist? Great, you're hired. What are they playing at?
I think it is one of those tweet at leisure and then repent many years later. There have been an awful lot of disobliging remarks about Donald Trump, and I suspect
by the Labour Party.
There has, absolutely, and very unwise. And I think for practical frontline politicians to be putting the boot into Donald Trump, whether they like him or not, is an incredibly foolish thing to do and to have done. And there's a lot of people eating a lot of humble pie, given Donald Trump clearly has made the greatest political comeback of all time, and he's going to be there for the next 4 years. So I think Trump's got a thick skin. Trump's a deal maker. I don't think he'll care two hoots about what Peter Mandelson has said in the past. He will recognise that this is a very clear smoke signal by sending Mandelson there, that Britain, Keir Starmer, this government really want to work effectively with Donald Trump. I suspect we'll see an early state visit from Donald Trump as well. Keir Starmer will probably get an awful lot of flack from that from people who don't like Trump. But this is business, and Mandelson personifies politics as the art of making a deal and getting things done, and that's why he's been brought back and put in this role.
Like rising from the lake and jumping back to haunt us all. He's back, Mandelson, on Frontline Politics. Kevin Marr, excellent as ever to have you on the show. Thank you very much, and have a very, very Merry Christmas to you, sir. Thank you. And thanks, of course, to you as well, Chris Hope. But now it's time for our greatest, biggest, Great British giveaway this year, and your chance to win £50,000 in tax, and it's all cash-free, remember. It's the biggest cash prize that we've ever given away here at GB News, just in time for Christmas, and it could be yours. Here's all the details that you need to win that whopping, juicy, mouth-watering £50,000 in tax-free cashola.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Next, the conversation is benefits Britain, as more than half of people in the UK now receive more in benefits than they pay in taxes. Astonishing official figures out today. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is Miss Universe fans hailing the end of wokeness and crediting the Trump effect after a biological woman, there's still some of them around apparently, has won the 2024 crown. She's Miss Denmark, because obviously the last decade, you know, it's just been a beast transgender smurfs from Papua New Guinea. They're the only people allowed to win any beauty contest, you know what I mean? You're not allowed to have any.
Some of the trans women have won these. You definitely wouldn't say no.
No,
they look amazing.
I've seen but I've seen some of them that didn't, and some that were clearly just there out of well.
Have there been more than one trans woman? I didn't realise this.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've got a chart at home. This one isn't trans. Victoria Thielvig, 21 of Denmark. Everything about that description says attractive.
Nazis. Okay, yeah. I have seen pictures of her. She is very attractive.
Yes.
She is.
Yes.
I don't know exactly how to put it, but she is kind of not retro or vintage or so. She's quite an old-fashioned notion of beauty, like just absolutely ice blue eyes.
No penis.
Absolutely extraordinary. Clear skin and gorgeous blonde hair. I mean, it's absolutely kind of mid-70s,
Apparently the sanity's returned to the beauty pageant industry, so they can get back to, sexualising 4-year-olds and promoting anorexia like they used to. So
there is that,
She will earn an estimated $250,000 annual salary working full-time as Miss Universe, and will live in a luxurious New York City apartment as she carries out her duties, which involve glass coffee tables and rich Saudi businessmen.
Glass coffee tables. And visiting other planets and solar systems and constellations, I would imagine, of Miss Universe.
Being concerned about animals.
Yes, absolutely, and wanting to bring about world peace. I miss those days.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:27 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the anti-Starmer parody song Freezing This Christmas, written by Chris Middleton, is hoping to make it to the Christmas #1 spots when that's announced a little later on. In fact, it's about 5:30 this afternoon. Now, let's give you a reminder once more of this ditty.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm.
But here's the funny thing, because for some reason its rise to the top of the charts isn't being celebrated by the BBC, as they simply refuse to play the song. So, earlier on today I thought I'd play it to them instead. And earlier today I appeared on Good Afternoon Britain and tugged a few feathers over at the BBC.
Well, I'm here today, Emily and Tom, because the Bar Humbug Broadcasting Corporation are refusing to play this song if it gets to #1. It currently is top of the download charts. As you said, it's top of the iTunes charts. I spoke to the creator, Chris Middleton, this morning. By the way, he's coming on my show today at 5:40 p.m. He's got everything crossed that it will be #1. They've raised a staggering £34,000 in donations on their Just Giving page. Every penny of that is going to pensioners this winter. The entire thing is meant to be a protest song, but also it's good-spirited. This lot have completely lost their sense of humour. Do you remember in 1977 they refused to play God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols when that got to #1? Too spicy. They refused to play Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood because that was too spicy. They're doing it again. And guess what? The Streisand effect. If you ban something, guess what? People want it more and more and more. And we've brought a speaker along to make sure that these mealy-mouthed Christmas killjoys are going to hear this song. Should we give them a blast now? Let's
Absolutely.
I've got no place to go. It'll be freezing this Christmas without you at home.
Magnificent fun. The pinnacle of my career, serious journalism, was always my destiny. Now, of course, the BBC is refusing to play the song because it's led to accusations of bias. So GB News took to the streets to find out what people in Britain thought of their decision.
Just too much of a statement for me.
Yeah. So you think the BBC have got this right?
I think so.
Free speech.
Free speech.
So that's in song and everything. Free speech should cover everything.
Be open, be inclusive, like you encourage us to. Play the music.
Everyone's allowed a political opinion, haven't they? So I think them not letting them play it is out of order, really. It's not fair.
I mean, to me, it's a form of censorship.
It's unfair for such a big organisation not to play such a thing because we need elderly people to be helped.
And there you see the overriding body of public opinion there is that the BBC are calling this wrong, and this is a free speech issue, and they should go ahead and play it. And by the way, I was stopped by a lot of people outside BBC, including a BBC staff member. Hope his job's going to be safe this Christmas, and they thought this was great what we were doing. You know, it should be free and inclusive. Freedom of speech, it appears, doesn't particularly work in this instance. Now, we do have a response to the criticism from the BBC, and the BBC has said that the decisions on what songs stations play are always made with the relevant audiences and the context in mind, whatever that means. Now, still lots more to come to now at 4 o'clock, including we'll be heading to a World War II veteran's 100th birthday celebrations. Magnificent stuff. I don't know which. Here's some more magnificent stuff as your headlines, and here's Mark White.
At 3:31, the main headlines from the GB News Centre. 2 men have been charged with assaulting police officers following an incident at Manchester Airport in July. 20-year-old Mohammed Amaz is charged with 2 offences of causing actual bodily harm, 1 charge of assaulting an emergency worker and another of common assault. 25-year-old Mohammed Ahmad is charged with causing actual bodily harm. They'll appear at Liverpool Magistrates Court on the 16th of January. The Crown Prosecution Service said no police officers would face criminal charges. Lord Mandelson is to become the UK's next ambassador to the United States. The Labour peer, who served under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, will take up the Washington appointment as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is understood to believe the Labour veteran has the trade expertise and networking abilities to bring the UK and America closer together. The Department for Health and Social Care has announced a package of extra funding for GPs to help bring back the family doctor. The government is consulting with the British Medical Association on measures, including the largest boost to GP funding in years, reducing outdated targets to free up time. The Prime Minister says councils should get on with the job of fixing pothole-plagued roads. Sir Keir Starmer said damaged roads can risk lives and cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for car repairs. He made the comments at the Department of Transport as they announced how much each local authority in England will receive to maintain roads in the next financial year. The Treasury announced in the budget in October that total local road maintenance funding for the year will be nearly £1.6 billion, enough to fix around 7 million potholes, we're told. Well, potholes probably the least of your worries, as the Met Office and the RAC are warning travellers to prepare for disruptive weather and extremely busy roads as the Christmas holidays begin. Yellow warnings for high winds have been issued, and parts of the UK could see gusts of up to 85 miles an hour. Millions of drivers are now starting their journeys, with motoring agencies warning of very congested roads on those main routes. The RAC estimates more than 29 million journeys will be made in the run-up to Christmas, around half happening this weekend. Today in particular has been branded Frantic Friday. National Highways said the agency will remove road restrictions on 95% of roads that they manage to help ease congestion. And keep it right with GB News for all your latest travel information, of course, on GB News Radio as well. After the break, it's back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be an unsettled few days, and for the rest of today, with a lot of traffic on the roads, we do have some rain to watch out for. That's clearing southeastwards associated with this cold front. Then, briefly, a fine interlude overnight, but the next weather front is appearing and it's going to turn increasingly windy by the start of Saturday. So a damp rush hour for the southeast corner. That does clear though, with some dry and clear weather overnight, for a time at least, before Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales turn wet and windy by dawn. That, of course, will keep temperatures from falling too far, but it's going to be a soggy start to the day for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales. Gusty winds increasing in strength during Saturday as showers replace the rain during the morning, and that wind continues to ramp up into the afternoon. We're talking about 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for the northern half of the UK, particularly over hills and coasts, and the risk for northwest Scotland of 75 mile-per-hour wind gusts later in the morning and early afternoon. For the southern half of the UK, it's going to be blustery with outbreaks of rain across much of England and Wales, but brighter skies do eventually turn up into the afternoon with quite frequent showers. That is apart from the south coast where it stays damp. throughout. It's mild in the south, but it's much colder further north as the winds change direction and bring the threat of some wintry showers as we start off Saturday night across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and those showers will be falling as snow above 100 or 200 metres or so. The start of Sunday also sees some wintry showers, but later in the day it's rain showers and it stays blustery, feeling cold on Sunday, milder by Christmas.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Jules Buckley. North Lanarkshire queues for the northbound M80, junction 6 up towards 6A Castle Carey is down to one lane and struggling is at the scene there of a collision. Now the northbound M6 Coleshill up to the M42 slow going. Junction 4 to 4A is a struggle with a breakdown blocking 2 lanes. And long queues in Buckinghamshire, the northbound M40, now a lane closed on the exit slip to the M25 at 1A. There's a collision on the hard shoulder still being recovered. The queue is before junction 1 at the Swakeleys roundabout, and there's hay bales on the M5 southbound near to Oakhampton 31. 2 lanes out and big queues stretching back to Exeter at junction 29. It's from an earlier lorry fire. Traffic very slow in and out of Exeter as it diverts as a result. And for now, that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Keir Starmer's government is paying a majority of Brits more in benefits than they pay back in tax, and that slaps Chancellor Rachel Reeves with a massive welfare bill and signifies the issues the country has with an ageing population. Now, let's get our teeth into this now and speak with the Professor of Economics and Public Policy at King's College, Jonathan Portes. Jonathan, welcome to the show. This paints a picture of a society in long-term decline. Too many pensioners, not too many, but I mean that too many people taking as a net recipient, 83% of them take out. Of course they do. They're pensioners. They paid in all their lives. But the biggest concern here is disability benefits going through the roof, could rocket to 100 billion a year by 2030. This is a picture of an unsustainable economy.
It's certainly true that the increase in disability benefits is a very significant concern. You're absolutely right about that. And we should say these figures relate actually to 22-23. So they're more than a year old. They're more than a year and a half old now. So this is very much what happened under the previous government. We don't know yet what has happened under this government. We should be clear about that. But you're absolutely right that the rise in disability benefits has been very steep. And it's quite interesting. This is despite numerous efforts to reduce receipt of disability benefits over the past 15 years. And what I think we found is that if you try and punish people, disabled people, by making it harder for them to get benefits, or the sort of rhetoric that we've seen in some cases in the past, you actually make the problem worse. That's what happened under Ian Duncan Smith and George Osborne, which has led to the root of the current problems. The current government says it wants to be a bit more positive to try and help people get back to work, which is the right approach. But it is going to be really difficult, and it is really important.
But another concern here, Jonathan, is the number of highest earners worked out here of earning 1.5 times the median wage is the lowest level since 1997. That's a combination of the fact they're being taxed to the hilt, and many of the finest brains are simply fleeing the country.
We don't have any evidence really of that. In fact, emigration, as measured by the ONS, has actually gone down a bit over the last few years. Surprisingly, I agree. We don't see really any evidence of a brain drain. We do see that income inequality did reduce a bit. That is, high earners earned a bit less and low earners earned a bit more. Most of that's actually got to do with the rise in the minimum wage, which again is something the last government, for better or worse, did. It pushed up the minimum wage a lot, and that reduced the relative advantage of higher earners and made the country a slightly more equal place compared to what otherwise would have happened. On the whole, I think that's probably a good thing rather than a bad one.
OK, we have to leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us. That's Jonathan Portis, the Professor of Economics and Public Policy at King's College. Thank you very much. Now, a wonderful story here, because the World War II veteran Mervyn Kirsch is celebrating his 100th birthday today. And to mark the occasion, a surprise party is being held in his honour by the friends and family at the Union Jack Club. And GBNews' national reporter Charlie Peters is there for us. Charlie, magnificent Mervyn. What a great day for him. Tell us more.
Afternoon, Martin. Well, welcome to the best party in town, and certainly the best 100th birthday party that anyone here has ever been to, because Mervyn Kirsch sat here just having had some cake, celebrating 100 years. He's a D-Day veteran. Earlier this year, he was in Normandy, celebrating 80 years since the liberation of France, the landings on Normandy. He was a member of the Royal Army Ordnance Corps, landing 3 days on Gold Beach after the start of the D-Day operation. But earlier today, at the start of this party, dozens gathered here, and they surprised him with this gathering. Let's have a watch. Well, lots of people around me are now eating their cake, and earlier this afternoon, in that last hour or so, as Mervyn Kirsch was sitting and enjoying the company of his friends, a sparkly cake was brought out for him to enjoy as well, which includes some iconic symbols related to Mervyn, symbols of his Jewish faith, symbols also of his military past, and also there's a copy of a newspaper in front of an armchair he likes to sit on at home, and lots of other veterans here to enjoy that cake as well. I just want to come and Dorothea was a D-Day veteran. You are a D-Day veteran. You served on that day. And
yes.
What does it mean to be here on Mervyn's 100th birthday?
It's fantastic. I've enjoyed myself tremendously. It's like Christmas has come a few days early. It's been great fun.
And tell everyone at home what you were doing on D-Day. What was your duty, your role as a soldier?
I wasn't actually doing a role on D-Day. I finished it the day before, because we were supervising the laying down of mulberry, which was a form of artificial landing strip, so that the troops and the trucks could be unloaded from the battleships onto the beaches without sinking into the Normandy sand, which is very treacherous.
So important training so that they could prepare for those landings.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And we were overlooking them all the day from a control tower out at sea. And if anybody broke an arm, we had to get in touch with the shore to let them know and to get help. And, of course, to keep everything in code so that any enemy listening in couldn't automatically learn from it.
Well, Dorothea Barron, thank you very much for your service in 1944, and thank you very much for being here as well. One of the many people that have gathered here to celebrate Mervyn Kirsch on his 100th birthday, a D-Day veteran who's having a great time today.
Charlie, absolutely legendary crowd you're with there, the Union Jack Club. You get all the best jobs. Not at all jealous that I'm stuck here at the studio. You're downing drinks with D-Day veterans, 100 today. Magnificent, Charlie Peters. Thank you very, very much for joining us on the show. Brilliant. Now, if you're in search of some winter sun this year, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. If you're heading off looking for the sun ahead of Christmas, it's largely fine in Spain but unsettled in Greece, whilst the winds feature highly on Saturday in the Canary Islands, with some showers moving through here. Some wet weather for Gibraltar, but for much of Spain, Balearics in particular, lighter winds and some sunshine. A breeze blowing through Italy and into Greece with some heavy rain here, and it stays showery in Greece throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Okay, coming up, Unionists in Northern Ireland are launching a bid to block an EU law being implemented for the first time since Brexit. They're at it again, trying to block Brexit. We'll get more on this next. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right, along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society. It actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
And Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's approaching 10 to 4 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Unionists in Northern Ireland are launching a bid to block an European Union law being implemented for the first time since Brexit. The Democratic Unionist Party has moved to trigger a mechanism in an effort to prevent a piece of Brussels legislation from coming into force, having initiated the process to pull the so-called Stormont brake. And that's the oversight element of the UK and the EU's Windsor framework over an updated EU regulation related to the labelling of chemicals. Well, to see what this all means, we can now speak with the political commentator, Dr. John Coulter. John, welcome to the show. A lot of people will be shaking their heads and thinking, well, why is a single piece of legislation from Brussels even being held over Northern Ireland or indeed any other part of the United Kingdom? But nevertheless, the handbrake is being pulled. Tell us more.
Well, good afternoon, Martin, and a Merry Christmas to you. And it certainly will be a Merry Christmas here in Northern Ireland for unionism and for Brexiteers if this stormont brake can be pulled. This will enable the Assembly and two parties to approach the UK government to pull this emergency sort of trade law to make sure that European law is not implemented here in Northern Ireland. Now, this piece of legislation, the stormont brake, is most vital, and it's essential that unionists are able to implement this, because there's a great fear here in Northern Ireland that the Starmer government is actually preparing some sort of Guy Fawkes-style plan to take us back into the European Union via the back door. So if this stormont brake can be applied to this piece of legislation, albeit it may seem a simple piece of legislation, it could be the blueprint for a Westminster brake, similar to the stormont brake, which would prevent us being dragged back into the EU by the back door.
And John, you're exactly right to point out that this is not just a piece of legislation about chemicals. It's not just a piece of legislation about something small. It's totemic, because it's about sovereignty. It's about laying down the law. It's like, we Brexited. We always were told we'd have full control. We'd take back control of our money, of our borders, of our fisheries, and of our lawmaking. And the Windsor framework, it was a Windsor knot that tied us to Brussels. And so, John, kicking back like this is essential to the democratic will of the 17.4 million.
Yes, I've absolutely no doubt that what the Starmer spin doctors will attempt to do is, if we go back into the European Union, given the austerity which the Tory government supposedly left us in, given the cost of living crisis, we'll have access to all these billions of euros and pounds if we get back into the European Union. And that will be the spin that they will try and push to try and coax us back in. We've also got to look at the bigger picture as well. We've just had a general election in the Republic of Ireland, and all the main parties who were elected are all pro-Europe. And they're throwing around euros at the present of minute. They're almost trying to buy Northern Ireland to get it back into some sort of united Ireland. And if that happens, then you're in a situation that if the Irish Unity people can ever get a ballot on Irish unity, the so-called border poll, what's to stop the Starmer government reintroducing yet another referendum to try and overturn the democratic vote in the UK that took place in 2016? It is absolutely vital that this stormont brake works. I suppose if you want to look at in Christmas terms, all of us like Brussels, well, I do anyway, Brussels sprouts with our Christmas dinner.
OK, well, Dr John Coulter, we have to leave it there. And Brussels sprouts, but not Brussels. Plenty more to come in the next hour, including the latest reaction to Sue Gray being put into the Lords. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel. That's your weather, and here's Aidan McGibbon.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be an unsettled few days, and for the rest of today, with a lot of traffic on the roads, we do have some rain to watch out for. That's clearing southeastwards associated with this cold front. Then, briefly, a fine interlude overnight, but the next weather front is appearing and it's going to turn increasingly windy by the start of Saturday. So a damp rush hour for the southeast corner. That does clear, though, with some dry and clear weather overnight, for a time at least, before Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England, as well as Wales, turn wet and windy by dawn. That, of course, will keep temperatures from falling too far, but it's going to be a soggy start to the day for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England, as well as Wales. Gusty winds increasing in strength during Saturday as showers replace the rain during the morning, and that wind continues to ramp up into the afternoon. We're talking about 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for the northern half of the UK, particularly over hills and coasts, and the risk for northwest Scotland of 75 mile-per-hour wind gusts later in the morning and early afternoon. For the southern half of the UK, it's going to be blustery with outbreaks of rain across much of England and Wales, but brighter skies do eventually turn up into the afternoon with quite frequent showers. That is apart from the south coast where it stays damp throughout. It's mild in the south, but it's much colder further north as the winds change direction and bring the threat of some wintry showers as we start off Saturday night across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and those showers will be falling as snow above 100 or 200 metres or so. The start of Sunday also sees some wintry showers, but later in the day it's rain showers and it stays blustery, feeling cold on Sunday, milder by Christmas.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello again. I'm Jules Buckley. North Lanarkshire. Queues northbound for the M80. Still a lane closed from junction 6 up to 6A at Castle Carey. It's at the scene there of an earlier collision. Now Lancashire, the eastbound M55, the entry slip coming on at Fulwood Junction 1 is partially blocked. An accident there is causing delays. It's still very slow around Stafford this afternoon on the northbound M6. There was an earlier breakdown. All lanes are back open, but still very slow on that northbound side. It's a similar tale on the clockwise M25, queuing just towards 16 for the M40 following an earlier collision, but again all lanes are open. And Devon, the M5 southbound, 2 lanes still out near to Oakhampton 31. It follows an earlier lorry fire. There were some hay bales on the road as well, queuing back to Exeter there still at junction 29.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. on this wonderful Christmas Friday, and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, the Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff and the Partygate investigator, Sue Gray. Kel Surprise, she's been nominated to be a Labour peer in the House of Lords, and we'll get reaction to this breaking news throughout the show. And Lord Peter Mandelson is set to become the next UK ambassador to the United States. But is the former arch-Remainer foaming at the mouth he was as a Remainer, and the man who once described the president-elect as a danger to the world, and you've guessed it, a racist. Is he really the right man for the job? And earlier today, I paid a special seasonal visit to the BBC.
It'll be freezing this Christmas without you at home.
Yeah, BBC employees were waving to me as I went past. Well, I think they were waving. And that was me at the BBC headquarters, as I said earlier today, blasting out the song Freezing This Christmas ahead of the Christmas chart countdown. Later on, the Christmas #1 will be announced today at around about 5:30 p.m. And I'll speak to the song's creator of Freezing This Christmas to get his reaction as soon as we have that historic announcement. Will it make it to the top spot? That's all coming up on your show today. What was the show? Always a pleasure to have your company. It was great fun down at the BBC earlier on, and we took to the streets to ask people around there in London, are the BBC doing the right thing? Because they won't play the song, they said, if it gets to #1. And the vast majority, the overriding majority of people in London, you know, that hellhole, that right-wing hellhole, London, multicultural London, so the BBC got this wrong. This as a freedom of speech issue. You don't have to like the message. It is a politically charged message, but it is a song about supporting pensioners. In fact, all proceeds from that song will go to pensioners. So far, the funding page, the Just Giving page alone, has raised over £35,000. The song's creator, Chris Middleton, has told me, and that's still going on. There's about an hour and a half now until the Christmas #1 is announced, so there's still time to get involved. Get in touch usual ways, gbnews.com/your say. And now there's another festive treat for you. It's your headlines with Mark White.
At 4:02, the latest headlines from the GB News Centre. 2 men have been charged with assaulting police officers following an incident at Manchester Airport in July. 20-year-old Mohammed Amaz is charged with 2 offences of causing actual bodily harm, 1 charge of assaulting an emergency worker and another of common assault. 25-year-old Mohammed Ahmad is charged with causing actual bodily harm. They'll appear at Liverpool Magistrates Court on the 16th of January. The Crown Prosecution Service said no police officers would face criminal charges. However, the police watchdog has confirmed it's still investigating possible police misconduct. Lord Mandelson is to become the UK's next ambassador to the United States. The Labour peer, who served under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, will take up the Washington appointment as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is understood to believe the Labour veteran has the trade expertise and networking abilities to bring the UK and America closer together. Dame Karen Pierce, the current ambassador, is expected to remain in post until Donald Trump's inauguration on the 20th of January. The Department for Health and Social Care has announced a package of GP funding to help bring back the family doctor. The government is consulting with the British Medical Association on measures, including the largest boost to GP funding in years. Measures also include greater flexibility to employ doctors as the Health Secretary vows to reform general practice. Health and Social Care Minister Stephen Kinnock said the plans will deliver better outcomes for patients.
Package of £889 million of investment that we're bringing forward today is really going to help to fix that front door. But investment always has to come with reform. So the negotiations that we'll be launching with the BMA will be based on busting all the bureaucracy and the red tape that they have to deal with. There'll be a patients charter so patients know what they can expect from the practice that they're registered with. There's going to be much better online access. And we're going to bring back the family doctor. We're going to incentivise surgeries to ensure that people are seeing the same doctor, because that's what gets much better outcomes for them.
The Prime Minister says councils should get on with the job of fixing pothole-plagued roads. Sir Keir Starmer said damaged roads can risk lives and cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for car repairs. The comments come as the Department of Transport announces how much each local authority in England will receive to maintain roads in the next financial year. In the budget, £1.6 billion was allocated to local roads funding over the coming year, representing a £500 million uplift. The Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, said the increase should be enough to fix around 7 million potholes.
We'll be releasing 75% of this funding next year to start off with, and we withhold 25% to ensure that councils are reporting back to us on how they are using that money, because we know that some roads at the moment are like obstacle courses, aren't they? You've got huge craters in them, and so what we need to make sure is that those really big safety problems are being tackled first and foremost, but we want councils as well to think strategically about how they use this money in the best way, because it's really important that we get good value for money.
The Met Office and the RAC are warning travellers to prepare for disruptive weather and extremely busy roads as the Christmas holidays begin. Yellow warnings for high winds have been issued, and parts of the UK could see gusts of up to 85 miles an hour. Millions of travellers now starting their journeys, with motoring agencies warning very heavy congestion on main roads. 29 million journeys will be made in the run-up to Christmas Day, around half happening this weekend. Today in particular has been branded Frantic Friday. Gosh, well, finally, the fully coloured waxwork of Sir Elton John performing his famous keyboard handstand has now been unveiled at Madame Tussauds in London. The figure is being released as the 77-year-old superstar releases his Disney Plus documentary celebrating the end of his lengthy touring career. Madame Tussauds is one of its most complex to date, they say, with regard to this waxwork. Sir Elton first sat for them back in 1976. It replicates Sir Elton with his legs in the air and his hands on the keyboard as the music festival got underway at Wembley Stadium in 1975. Makes you feel all Christmassy, doesn't it? Now it's back to Santa's favourite little helper, Martin Daubney.
Oh, beautiful white. They get better every time. Thank you very, very much. Now let's get stuck into this hour, because Sue Gray, the controversial civil servant who investigated Partygate and also went on to become Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, well, quelle surprise, she's been made a life peer as part of the Prime Minister's 30 new appointments as he attempts to swing the House of Lords his way. Now, talking about swaying things his way, meanwhile, Lord Peter Mandelson is set to become the next UK ambassador to the United States, with a cabinet minister describing him as a really good fit for the role. Now, Lord Mandelson, who served in the cabinets, of course, of Sir Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, is poised to be the UK's next top diplomat in Washington, marking a significant appointment as Donald Trump, of course, returns to the White House on January the 20th. However, is the man who once described Donald Trump as a danger to the world and little short of a white nationalist and a racist really the right man to represent us in the United States? And let's talk about all of that now in the studio with GBNews political editor Chris Hope. Chris, welcome back to the studio. Let's start with Sue Gray. No great surprises. She was always going to get draped in ermine and stuck in the corner, maybe until she has a great comeback, but she did have a huge amount of controversy around her. Is this the right move?
I think she should have got some honour, wouldn't she, Sue Gray? She was Cabinet Office second permanent secretary. She kind of ran all the inquiries and whistleblower stuff for the government through many years indeed. And she's given us in the political list here as a former Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister. That was, her worst moment probably. Didn't do very well as Chief of Staff, certainly the way she left in a power struggle over the next move. And also, I think the government started wobbly, having fought a good campaign to get in. That's why Morgan McSweeney, the new Chief of Staff, has that job. I think it will annoy some people, but I think it's probably what was coming.
But isn't there sort of cronyism that Keir Starmer said he wouldn't do?
You've got David Evans there, the former General Secretary of the party, 2020-2024, in the early years of Keir Starmer. Thangham Debonair, former Shadow Culture Secretary. Lynn Brown, a former Labour MP. Kevin Brennan. Mary Bowstead, of course, known to many as a former General Secretary of the National Education Union. Luciana Berger, of course, former Labour MP. Yeah, of course, I mean, this is the party trying to reorientate the Lords towards where they sit, because they are still outnumbered by the Tory party by about 30 or 40 Tories. Of course, the crossbenchers, 184 of them, hold the balance of power. Even when the hereditary 81 of those have gone, there'll still be a majority for the Tories, setting aside the crossbenchers. I think on the Tory side, though, some interesting appointments. 6 Tory peers made, 30 for Labour. But you look there, don't you, at, I think it's interesting seeing Nigel Biggar. He's a big critic of those who attack the British Empire. That's interesting, I think, for GB News viewers and listeners. And also Toby Young, the founder and director of the Free Speech Union and an associate editor of the Spectator magazine. He did a lot to found those free schools also in Hammersmith in the early days of Michael Gove's reforms. I think a good appointment there to the Lords. You'll bring fresh air. Claire Fox, Baroness Fox there, is a real rising star in the House of Lords. I think Young will be the same.
Yeah, and of course Toby Young was a man they tried to cancel repeatedly on the left, but of course he came to re-prominence during lockdowns as a sceptic, pushing back against the science, against lockdowns, and then taking on the cases of many people who had their careers and lives cancelled with the Free Speech Union. So, good bit of balance there. Let's bring back Lord Mandelson. That's what's happening. Mandy, back from the grave, back from the dead. Of course, he served to Blair. Something no one's really mentioned so far is that Blair connection. Now, Tony Blair would like his fingers in all sorts of pies between Britain and America, primarily digital ID, vaccine passports. Is Mandelson a whiff back to the Blair days? Could Mandelson be Blair's poodle?
There's certainly flavour of getting the old band back together. Jonathan Powell is a special advisor and also the national security advisor. Peter Mandelson, of course, both those two individuals, part of the top team of 5 or 6 people around Tony Blair when he romped to victory back in 1997. Yeah, I mean, it's experience. There's an inexperienced cabinet. Not everyone in cabinet, not 1 or 2 in cabinet who have actually served in a previous government. So you've got people around it who aren't MPs but are going to give some heft to this government. I think Mandelson is an astute political appointment. It's the first such political appointment in 3 or 4 decades. He is someone who is political to his fingertips. He can do a deal. He was a former EU Trade Commissioner. He held, I think, 3 jobs in government. He's been out of frontline politics for 14 years. Obviously, he's been made a peer. I think it was by Gordon Brown back in the day, of course, to bring him back into government that time. I think he knows how to do a deal. You're going to say to me, but he's a Remainer in chief.
Well, it was an ultra-Remainer. I mean, as you said, a trade envoy to Brussels. And my question is quite straightforward. Is this guy going to do the right thing for Britain or the right thing for Brussels?
I think how people voted 8 years ago in the referendum is, you can mention it, but Liz Truss was a Remainer. She became a Brexiteer. I think he's a Democrat. He wants to believe and make Brexit work. We have the red lines from this government. I was struck by what Patrick O'Flynn told us just over there this week on your show, Martin. He thinks Brexit needs to be tested by people who don't like it. If it gets past that test into the next election, it might be safe, although some say we're going to be tied back into all sorts of fresh deals with the EU.
And also, there's a flash of the garter, perhaps, because Mandelson said that Starmer should perhaps utilise Nigel Farage as the Trump whisperer. So maybe you're right. Here's the guy that once fought for Brussels, now saying integrate Nigel Farage. Nigel's been conspicuous by his absence. He hasn't commented.
Well, he's told me this morning he reserves judgment. I'm reserving a judgment, Chopper, he says. So there we are. That's what he thinks about this, and we'll wait and see for a Farage-type intervention. So also, we're watching closely to Twitter and Truth Social to see what Trump says. Does he approve it? You must imagine, though, there's been a bit of a dance happening here. We know on the 3rd of December, Jonathan Powell and Morgan McSweeney went to the States. On Wednesday, Keir Starmer spoke with Trump. On Friday, they announced this. Trump must have known it was coming, so he can't be surprised. You'd hope not anyway. And just on that point about Farage, he does want to help. He told me on his programme on Tuesday night, when he was filmed crossing the floor, Starmer across the floor to speak to Farage, he offered to help. Farage is a patriot. He wants to help his country. even if that means helping Labour with Trump.
And metaphorically, could that mean the most unlikely alliance of Peter Mandelson jumping into bed with Nigel Farage? It's enough to make the eyes roll.
It's not beyond the realms, and it's Christmas.
Yeah, it is indeed a romance, unlikely at that at Christmas. Now, stick around, Chris, because I'm now joined by the Associate Director of SEC and a former government trade advisor, Ali Renison. Ali, welcome to the show. What do you make of the resurrection of Peter Mandelson? Does it say something else, that there's a shortage of modern-day talent and they've got to go raiding the archive like this?
I mean, I think it is politically an astute appointment in one sense that, you know, ultimately when under Trump 2.0, we're going to have a real politicization of trade. Trade and politics are going to go back hand in hand. And so you need someone who kind of gets that. Obviously, Mandelson's predecessors as UK ambassadors to the United States have all been diplomats in sort of recent memory. So I think on the one hand, it's a good thing to have someone in there who gets the sort of the political emphasis needed to kind of navigate your way around trade with sort of Donald Trump. On the other hand, you know, he is someone who certainly, I think this is maybe a skill that might be needed. Will have to talk out of both sides of his mouth to a certain degree, because obviously at the moment, you know, Keir Starmer's government is trying to pursue an EU reset across a number of different kind of agreements, but also trying to kind of reassure Washington that he's not going so far that would sort of undermine the US-UK relationship. So he's going to have to do quite a sort of deft balancing act, which I think is why he's probably been brought in. It's interesting to see that he's certainly had a Damascene conversion to the idea that you can sort of have the best of both worlds between the US and the EU, because during the Brexit negotiations, he was very much in this firmly the camp of we need to stay as close to the EU as possible.
You're absolutely right to say that. And can I also point out the fact it's been exposed, as always, the evidence these days. Back in 2019, he called Donald Trump a danger to the world, little short of a white nationalist and racist. Is there anybody in the Labour Party's top ranks that hasn't called Donald Trump some kind of fascist or Nazi or white supremacist? David Lammy, Angela Rayner, and now Mandelson. What are they playing at?
Well, I don't think it's just limited to the Labour Party. We can also look at Donald Trump's sort of Vice President-elect J.D. Vance as well. It's certainly, I think, that sort of government is making people have to grow up quite quickly. The interesting thing about Donald Trump is that he doesn't mind people that kiss the ring. And I think that in the position of having to be the ambassador to the United States, you have to do a bit of ring kissing. So I think that he won't mind it at all. Basically, Peter Mandelson goes on an extreme charm offensive.
Yeah, Peter Mandelson might be quite good at that. On a serious point, is there the whiff of Tony Blair in the air here? You know, we're playing with the idea that, of course, Mandelson was Tony Blair's man. Tony Blair would love certain things to work out between America and the United Kingdom in his favour. We know he's got his fingers in all sorts of pies around digital ID, around vaccine passports, around freedom of movement. Is that something that we're perhaps being overly sceptical about, or could Mandelson be Blair's poodle?
I mean, obviously the connection endures, but I think since he was in government, effectively, really fundamentally, Peter Mandelson has very much become his own man in politics in his own right. So I think that Mandelson, you know, he sort of has run a big lobbying firm doing a lot of work with sort of investments and talking to sort of characters all across the world, you know, whether they're dictators, whether they're kind of benevolent leaders. So I think he's actually going to be quite focused on what can he do to reassure and convince Donald Trump that actually that there is something for the UK to offer. It'll be interesting to see if we get into talking about a US trade deal, because I don't actually think the Labour government is really keen on the idea of a big US trade deal. You've heard Mandelson talk about, well, let's not talk about agriculture, let's talk about things like digital and tech, which is a nice idea, but ultimately the US plays hardball, certainly Donald Trump does. And I think it'll be very difficult for the UK to really take certain things off the table in terms of avoiding tariffs and Trump's tariff glare.
OK, thank you very much, Ali Renison, for joining us on the show. Now, before you go, Chris, I hope this is your last time in the studio with me before Christmas. I wanted to ask you yesterday, when Keir Starmer was like saying, well, he sent out a warning, you know, to Donald Trump about trade tariffs. We're about to do a huge deal. Who do you think is going to have the whip hand here? It's hard to imagine Britain sitting down and actually, you know, scaring America at the moment.
He couldn't say much else, could he? I mean, we've got the threat here from Donald Trump about a 10% tariffs on all imports. And where does the UK sit? We've got Nigel Farage saying we can do a bit of a clever deal here. We're not like the European Union. We can be box clever. We've got, of course, the Asia-Pacific countries we can do trading with. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. I think, I think Mandelson can do a deal here. I think I mean, there was spies moved to that role. Former Trade Commissioner Cathy Ashton. I think someone like a clever, fleet of foot. Who can think, a politician like Mandelson who can think outside the box is our best chance of working it out. But he has got some history. He's got to get past the remarks, the comments of friendships with Jeffrey Epstein in the past. Remarks he made about Trump. All this will come out over the next few days. But that's as it should be. It's a big role.
Can I ask you for a Christmas prediction? Chris Hope, Mystic Chris, do you think that there could be a role for Nigel Farage in all of this transatlantic deal?
Not now as the MP for Clacton. I just can't see it. The background role, certainly, and he has both Elon Musk, the key advisor now to Trump, plus Trump himself on speed dial. But I don't think now as the MP for Clacton he can really do much more physical support. Had the election not happened, or if he weren't an MP, it'd be quite tempting to use him as an unofficial role. But we had the same chatter back in November. The difference about Mandelson is he's willing to use Farage in a way the main parties aren't.
OK, we have to leave it there. Chris Hope, you've been magnificent for this channel this year. You really have. You've been great on my show. Thank you very much. Always an absolute pleasure. Chris Hope, the best in the business. Now, moving on, it's time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year and your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. Now, it's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away here at GB News, and it could all be yours. Here's all the details that you need to win a whopping, mouth-watering 50 grand tax-free cash.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, brace yourselves because it all kicked off at an Oldham council meeting last night after one councillor called another a Nazi. A riot van was called after two councillors had what they call an altercation outside. I'll be joined by a councillor who was at that meeting who claims this behaviour drags us all into the gutter. Beautiful at Christmas. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Last orders at the bar, and I'm joined by Geordie Shore star Ricky Guanaccio. Have I said that right? Is that Italian?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Is Italian, your parents Italian?
Is it? Pronunciation was pretty much perfect.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, look, mate, Geordie Shore, I've never watched it, mate, so I do apologise about that. But I know these reality TV shows are making big stars out of the people, making you famous, making you loads of money. Is it worth it?
For me personally, yeah. It's been a hell of a career. Been a hell of a lot of fun doing it, ups and downs, but first and foremost, money-wise, yeah.
That's good. So people stopping in the street, you being famous, wanting the autograph and all. How did you cope with that, Ricky?
Well, when we first started doing the show, I mean, we got our show off the back of Jersey Shore in America. We never expected the fame that we got, and, you know, being one of the biggest reality TV shows in the UK and now the world, you know, it's in 150-odd countries worldwide. Wow. It's pretty crazy. It's when you're living in houses. I mean, for example, Geordie Shore and Love Island's probably the same as well. When you're living in villas and you're living in houses, the arguing side sort of plays on your mind. You've got to deal with all that. You know, it's a hard place to be. It's a pressure cooker.
You're living in one of these villas, Ricky, or one of these houses. Do you ever wake up one morning and think, what am I doing here?
When I first started, yes. Yeah. Now, I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't mind all the, you know, there's no emotion connecting me now with film, and it's kind of like I go in there, it's fun, or it's, you know, it's dramatic, whatever it may be.
Have you ever worked behind a bar?
No.
No?
Yeah, for not a long period of time. My mum and dad had a...
Well, I can
definitely mess this one up.
Yeah, I can actually believe that you've never worked behind a bar.
Yeah, so my parents sacked us when I worked in the restaurant.
Well, obviously, I mean, you wouldn't get a job here with a pint like that, would you?
Do you want it?
No, mate, no.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Time is 4:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a council meeting in Oldham in Greater Manchester descended into absolute chaos on Wednesday after a debate about the green belt somehow ended with councillors allegedly squaring up to each other. Well, councillors at the meeting shouted at each other, with one being called a Nazi. And the Labour councillor called this, and he did not like it.
I cannot, guys, carry on.
And apparently it got worse after that. A couple of riot vans were called because it all kicked off in the car park. What on earth calls this? Well, let's speak now to a man who was there, and that's the Oldham councillor, Brian Hobin. Brian, welcome to the show, and thank you for getting back to us. I know you're out Christmas shopping earlier on. Thanks for sparing your time. What on earth happened in this meeting?
Unfortunately, Martin, a couple of people's emotions got the better of themselves and caused a bit of chaos, as you say. It was rather unbelievable, the behaviour, really.
But how did it go from a conversation about the green belt to comparing somebody to Adolf Hitler?
Well, there was a discussion or a debate, rather, about a motion that was brought to the chamber at the last meeting. That some people disagreed with what had happened and were not happy with the way the administration had dealt with it. Unfortunately, I don't think shouting and bawling at people in the chamber is the right thing to do. There's different processes to make, and if you've got an issue with anything that you put forward to the council and it's not dealt with how you believe, then I think dealing with it in private instead of having a slanging match in front of the public in the chamber is the wrong way to do it, and that's what happened, unfortunately.
And I know you're keen to point out that the Oldham mayor there, that's a gentleman in the centre, Zahid Chowan, is that how I pronounce his name, he was calling for calm, and I think he did a good job. I mean, he was placed in a very, very difficult circumstance. He adjourned the meeting, but then the trouble was taken outside and things escalated further.
Yeah, the mayor's a very nice man, a very humble man, and he's a good friend of mine. And he did manage the meeting very well. He always does. He manages the meeting very well. And he did ask for. We adjourned, and apologies were asked for, which was quite right. People were asked to apologise for what they said. Their apologies were not forthcoming, so we had to adjourn the meeting again. And there was nasty things said, and then yes, apparently there was between party members. Close party members previous to this apparently squared up, and there was nasty things said. The police were called because of the things that were said, because probably in a way it was hate crime, Martin, some of it. But yeah, people squared up to one another, and it did get a bit, not the way that we want to portray how things go on in Oldham. It's kind of, we don't want to be seen to be this mad box of frogs. We want to be able to encourage people to invest and to get into Oldham Borough and make it a better place. And behaving like this doesn't do us any favours at all. Of course, we're on national media now, which is showing it up even further. It's not doing us any favours at all, Martin.
That's got to be said, Brian, we're used to this kind of chaos, I don't know, in places like Korea, you know, where they start flinging chairs about or throwing slippers around in Iraq or steaming in places like Croatia. But in a humble council meeting in Oldham, I think we can all agree that this has no place in politics. Now, it's OK to disagree, it's OK to be passionate, it's OK to be vocal, but you can't start flinging around insults like calling people Nazis.
You can't get personal with it, Martin. You've got to be professional. You're representing an area, and then people want you to behave in a professional manner. They don't want you shouting and bawling. They don't want you having to go at council officers who are doing a very good job in a very stressful way. And it just paints us in a terrible light, and it's not good. It's not good for the area. It's not good for them. It's just we need to have adult behaviour and adult debates within the chamber and not behaving like school children. And personal insults. I mean, the councillor that was called a Nazi has had such a terrible time recently with people really, really having to go at him. It's not good for his health. He's not having a good time. He needs support. The last thing he needs is people shouting at him like this.
OK, and let's hope this all gets sorted out in the fullness of time. And I also quickly want to point out that you've done some amazing work on Oldham Council, particularly around grooming gangs and trying to get justice for local girls. Is there any update on that, Brian? I know you've been pushing hard on that. You're doing some sterling work. I want to get the message across that at Oldham Council you are doing some amazing work.
It's not just me, Martin, is it? There's a whole lot of people that have been involved in that. We did. As we spoke last time, I think we got the motion passed at council so that now there will be a public inquiry. I've kind of, as I always wanted to do, Martin, we got it past that post, and now it's time for me to step back and let the people that need to deal with it and give us what we asked for. All I will do now from the sidelines is ensure that them survivors get that inquiry that we so wanted. So it's been passed on now. The mantle's been passed on now for the people to make sure that we get that inquiry. But yes, it's been hard work, but there's a lot of people involved, and we will get to the end of it. And I do thank you and GB News for the chance that we've had to push that as well.
It's an absolute pleasure to support that sterling work. Thank you very much. And well done for calling for calm on the council there. Councillor Brian Obin there from Oldham. Thanks for joining us, and a very, very Merry Christmas. And apologies to the wife for dragging you back to be on GB News. Now we have a statement here from the council leader. It's Labour's Aruj Shah, who told the chamber, shame on all of us for allowing this behaviour to continue and grow, and stand here to proclaim we represent the people of the borough and their best interest when we conduct ourselves like this. Now, during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we are hearing from church ministers across the country, and each day they have a special message for you to celebrate the festive season, and here's today's.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 20.
A number of years ago, a woman once told me how she didn't feel good enough to come into church. She didn't feel good enough to be surrounded by people she perceived to be better than her in the presence of God. She was then surprised to hear that I'm not a Christian because I'm a good person. I'm a very bad person who needed a saviour and made me a Christian. Maybe you feel the same way that she does. Maybe you think the church doors are shut, or God himself is shut off from you. Maybe you feel unworthy to enter his presence. And there is some truth in that. God is holy, and because he is holy, he requires moral perfection to enter his presence, which means he is out of bounds for everyone. Everyone is shut off from him. So what does God do? At Christmas time, 2,000 years ago, he sent his son to die on the cross in our place, to rise to a new life, to open the door for heaven, to free us from the prison of darkness in the shadow of death. So now, because of what he's done, we can come into the presence of God and enjoy him forever. This is Emmanuel, God with us.
You know, every time I see those things, I just think they're absolutely wonderful. And you can see all of our special Advent messages as Christmas approaches by going to gbnews.com/Advent. And a very, very Merry Christmas to you. Now, loads more still to come to now, 5 o'clock, including the Prime Minister says he has no regrets so far about his decisions from his premiership. Well, we'll find out from a farmer soon to see if he's got any regrets about Keir Starmer's government. But first, here's your news headlines, and it's Mark White.
Good afternoon. The latest headlines at 4:34 from the GB News Centre. And some breaking news to begin with. The US has said it's killed the leader of the ISIS terrorist group in Syria. US Central Command forces carried out an airstrike targeting Abu Yusuf. The strike took place in an area previously controlled by the Syrian regime and Russian forces before the recent fall of Bashar al-Assad. Another ISIS operative was also killed in the strike, according to officials in Washington. A US military spokesman said the strike underscores America's commitment to preventing ISIS regaining strength in Syria and threatening the West. Well, some more breaking news, and Downing Street has now confirmed that Lord Mandelson is to become the UK's next ambassador to the United States. The Labour peer, who served under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, will take up the Washington appointment as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer believes the Labour veteran has the trade expertise and networking abilities to bring the UK and America closer together. Dame Karen Pierce, the current ambassador, will remain in post until Donald Trump's inauguration on the 20th of January. 2 men have been charged with assaulting police officers following an incident at Manchester Airport in July. 20-year-old Mohammed Amaz is charged with 2 offences of causing actual bodily harm, one charge of assaulting an emergency worker and another of common assault. 25-year-old Mohammed Ahmad is charged with causing actual bodily harm. They'll appear before Liverpool Magistrates Court on the 16th of January. The Crown Prosecution Service said no police officers would face criminal charges. However, the police watchdog has confirmed it's still investigating possible police misconduct. The Department of Health and Social Care has announced a package of GP funding to help bring back the family doctor. The government is consulting with the British Medical Association on measures including the largest boost to GP funding in years. Measures also include greater flexibility to employ doctors, as the Health Secretary vows to reform general practice. And the Met Office and the RAC are warning travellers to prepare for disruptive weather and extremely busy roads as the Christmas holidays begin. Yellow warnings for high winds have been issued, and parts of the UK could see gusts of up to 85 miles an hour. Millions of travellers now starting their journeys, with motoring agencies warning of very heavy congestion on main roads. 29 million journeys will be made in the run-up to Christmas Day, around half happening this weekend. Today in particular has been branded Frantic Friday. So all the more important to stay tuned, of course, for GB News travel updates on GB News Radio. That's it for the moment. We're back with more news at 6.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be an unsettled few days, and for the rest of today, with a lot of traffic on the roads, we do have some rain to watch out for. That's clearing southeastwards associated with this cold front. Then, briefly, a fine interlude overnight, but the next weather front is appearing and it's going to turn increasingly windy by the start of Saturday. So a damp rush hour for the southeast corner. That does clear though, with some dry and clear weather overnight, for a time at least, before Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales turn wet and windy by dawn. That, of course, will keep temperatures from falling too far, but it's going to be a soggy start to the day for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England, as well as Wales. Gusty winds increasing in strength during Saturday as showers replace the rain during the morning, and that wind continues to ramp up into the afternoon. We're talking about 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for the northern half of the UK, particularly over hills and coasts, and the risk for northwest Scotland of 75 mile-per-hour wind gusts later in the morning and early afternoon. For the southern half of the UK, it's going to be blustery with outbreaks of rain across much of England and Wales, but brighter skies do eventually turn up into the afternoon with quite frequent showers. That is apart from the south coast where it stays damp throughout. It's mild in the south, but it's much colder further north as the winds change direction and bring the threat of some wintry showers as we start off Saturday night across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and those showers will be falling as snow above 100 or 200 metres or so. The start of Sunday also sees some wintry showers, but later in the day it's rain showers and it stays blustery, feeling cold on Sunday, milder by Christmas.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello again. I'm Jules Buckley. The northbound M80 still struggling. All lanes are back open though from Junction 6 up to Castlecarry at 6A. It follows an earlier collision there this afternoon. Now Loughborough in Leicestershire, the Derby Road, the A6 closed both ways between Regent Wharf Place and Regent Place Retail Park. Queues either side of the scene of an accident. A previous bump on the clockwise M25 is cleared, but the delays haven't. It's still very slow clockwise after Junction 16 for the M40. Southbound M23 after the M25 at 8. There was a breakdown there. Traffic was stopped. It's back on the move. All lanes open. Still slow going. And in Devon, the southbound M5 really struggling. 2 lanes out near to Oakhampton at 31. Follows an earlier lorry fire. The queue still back towards Exeter at junction 29. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:41 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Well, let's take a look at Sir Keir Starmer as he faced off with the Parliamentary Committee chairs yesterday, where he said he would have done anything differently during his premiership so far.
But is there anything that you would do differently if you were starting out now, knowing what you know?
No, we had to do tough stuff. We're getting on with it, and I'm very pleased to be delivering from a position of power rather than going around the division lobbies losing every night. I've had too much of that.
So, Sir Keir Starmer wouldn't have done anything differently. Let's get the reaction now from a farmer, and I'm joined by Clive Bailey, of course, great friend of the show. Clive, welcome to the show. Sir Keir Starmer's perfectly happy with the fact he's taken the winter fuel allowance away, the inheritance farm tax raid on farmers, of course, and I know you were particularly annoyed about a comment made by the Agricultural Secretary yesterday, Steve Reed. You told me, he said, we know you're in it for the money. What's your take on the end-of-year report for Sir Keir Starmer when it comes to farming?
Yeah, good evening, Martin. Well, I think regrets he really should have a few by now. As you just mentioned, he's pretty much worked his way through every sector of society. We've done pensioners, we've done farmers and family business with his changes to business property relief. The NIC's contributions, national insurance contributions, have hit retail and hospitality hard. The WASPy women and the pension issue yesterday. He's basically worked his way through every part of society, and alongside that, his Chancellor seems hell bent on throwing our economy into the mother of all recessions next year. The way things are going. So yeah, he should have plenty of regrets, really. In fact, I think the only thing maybe he's achieved so far is something to add to his bucket list. He's at least got himself Christmas #1, hasn't he?
Well, let's see if that comes true. We'll speak to the creator of that later in the show, Chris Middleton. You put another story to my attention, and that is it's the time of year, of course, where farmers are hoping for a bumper payday. This is when everyone stocks up on all the essentials, the big turkey, the big shop. Should be putting money into farmers' pockets, Clive Bailey. You sent me a story yesterday. 15 pence. They're selling bags of seasonal vegetables, carrots, broccoli, Brussels sprouts at Tesco. 15p for a bag of vegetables. That presumably means you guys are making no profit whatsoever.
Well, yeah, this worsens, doesn't it? I mean, it was 15 pence yesterday. Today, apparently, plenty of the major supermarkets are at 8 pence for these kilos of sprouts, potatoes, parsnips. Now, that is, make this really clear, that is way below the cost of production, way below it. So, I mean, they're almost giving this stuff away. And what it's doing, it's devaluing food. It's no wonder our government places absolutely no value on farming and no value on food when it's basically for free in the supermarkets. I mean, I've heard stories today about the farmers are actually going and buying these carrots and vegetables from the supermarkets in quantity because they can feed them to their animals cheaper than they can buy the feed for their livestock. It's ridiculous. It's making a nonsense of supermarkets say they want to help and support farmers, yet they constantly insult us by giving food such a low value.
So does that mean then that farmers are getting next to no money whatsoever for the seasonal vegetables? This should be the bumper payday time of year. Instead, these giveaways, these markdowns, you're getting hammered.
Yeah, so that's how these things tend to work. So sometimes when supermarkets do, or big retailers do, like buy one, get one frees, or particularly reduced levels, they come to the processors and the farmers and say, right, we're going to do this thing, we're going to move more quantity, and you're going to support it. So you're going to get less for it. That's the way they do it sometimes. Occasionally, they take the loss themselves because, you know, the hook of getting you into store to buy more expensive wine or more expensive turkey or whatever it happens to be. But make no mistake, supermarkets don't lose money. Tesco's made 2.9 billion last year. You know, a similar amount, 2.7, I think, the year before. They're not losing money, whereas farmers have this 0.5% return on their capital that we've discussed many times in relation to the business property and APR issues. So, yeah, when they say lean on the shoulders of those in society that can afford it, it's not farmers, but these retailers, they're a big part of the problem.
Absolutely astonishing that farmers are buying carrots from supermarkets and feeding them to their animals because it's cheaper than animal food. I just don't know what to make of that. That's incredible. Clive Bailey, thank you very much for joining us on the show, as ever, and a Merry Christmas to you. You've been fantastic this year. Thank you. Now, if you're in search of some winter sun this year, here are the forecasts for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. If you're heading off looking for the sun ahead of Christmas, it's largely fine in Spain but unsettled in Greece, whilst the winds feature highly on Saturday in the Canary Islands with some showers moving through here. Some wet weather for Gibraltar, but for much of Spain, Balearics in particular, lighter winds and some sunshine. A breeze blowing through Italy and into Greece with some heavy rain here, and it stays showery in Greece throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Now stick around, got an amazing, heart-warming story next. Now some patriotic locals are giving £300 to some local pensioners who've lost their winter fuel allowance. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Millions are struggling to stay warm with the wet weather, the cost of living and, of course, cuts to fuel payments.
Yes, winter is fast approaching, so it's crucial to find cost-effective ways to save on your energy expenses whilst staying reasonably warm.
So joining us to provide advice on heating your home, or at least staying warm somehow, is one of the leading voices on lowering energy bills, Nick Miles. And you are very welcome in here this morning. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, in the olden days, you just used to put on an extra jumper. But actually, it's more serious than that, isn't it? What is the best way, the most cost-effective way, to keep your home warm?
Some of the bigger things is we need to do more things on insulating our properties, but actually sometimes, you know, it can be simple things like turning down a thermostat. You know, those that have got the luxury of being able to afford
energy bills and keep their homes on the thermostat a bit too high. If you just turn it down by 1 simple degree, as long as you keep it between 18 and 22 degrees, can save up to 5 to 10% of your energy bill. So that's a kind of a very simple way of doing things. But, there can be other little tips and tricks you can do as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I always get it when people say about this, but like 18 degrees is not warm for a house.
No, and it's twofold actually. It's that kind of relative temperature, but also it's the kind of drafts and things you have in your house. So it's the comfort factor. So what we have a lot of old properties in our country. You've got some 8 million hard-to-treat properties built before World War II that have got poor insulation, but also very, very drafty. So it's the temperature and it's the kind of the draftiness of them that kind of keeps us uncomfortable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 5 with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, patriotic locals in South London were so moved by the plight of Jean and also another pensioner called Keith. They both lost their winter fuel allowance. So they had a whip around and they've given them £300 each to help with their heating bills this Christmas. A completely heart-warming Christmas tale. And I'm now joined by those two pensioners. Welcome to GB News. A fantastic story, and tell us about how you came across some supportive locals who gave you this money. Jean, let's start with you.
I was walking around the park and I bumped into one of the men, and they was doing some building work. And I had a dog and we started speaking. And that's how we got to know one another. And it's been a pleasure meeting them. They've been so kind to us. So I just don't know what to say. They've been marvellous.
And they told you, and you told them that you'd lost your winter fuel allowance, and the next thing you know, they've got 300 quid for the pair of you. It's amazing.
No, we didn't even say that. They asked us. They didn't know. So that's how kind they are, that they come over to us.
Well, it's a heartwarming story. Keith, let's bring you in now. So you find yourself on the receiving end of a 300 quid Christmas bonus as well. What an amazing tale.
Yes, through Jean, she does a bit of cooking and cleaning for me, and she explained and suggested that these boys would help me out. I'm in the same boat. I didn't receive an allowance for my fuel this year. I've paid my taxes and insurance. I've worked in the past as a dustman, done everything the right way. I mean, I know it's off the track, the same as the WASPy women, but just got that, a blank, And quite frankly, I mean, this is the 6th largest economy in the world. We send aid to foreign countries, to India. They've got a space program. Syria, last week, 50 million, no bother. They don't even know who's running the country. I mean, apparently, the guy that's running the country now, the Yanks had a bounty on his head because he was a terrorist. But no, they've probably got another check in the post on the way. It's crazy.
Keith, can I interject there? Are we about to see a handover of some money to you on camera now? Is that happening?
They've just put it on the table here for me. 300.
This is astonishing. So you met some people locally. They call themselves Patriots of Britain. They've just met you in a park. They got talking to you, and they've been so moved by your plight. They've literally given you the £300 each that the government has taken away from you. It's an incredible story. Jean, can I ask you how it makes you feel? Has it reinstalled your faith in human nature?
Well, when I've met these gentlemen, I just can't thank them enough. They've just been so kind to me. It's unbelievable. I just cannot. I was choked. I wanted to cry for what they've done for me. And I've worked all my life up till I was 72. It's a disgrace what they're doing to the pensioners today.
They keep talking about a black hole. There's only one hole. It's an arsehole.
Oh, OK, we have to stop there. I'm afraid we can't have that sort of language, Keith. I'm afraid. Apologies to viewers there. Look, we have to stop there. But an amazing story. Thank you very much there, Jean and Keith. And thanks to the Patriots of Britain who did that. Loads more coming up in your next hour, including the reaction to Sue Gray getting appointed to the House of Lords. I'm Martin Daubney on British News Channel. Apologies again for that fruity language. But now it's time for your weather with Aidan McGibbon.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be an unsettled few days, and for the rest of today, with a lot of traffic on the roads, we do have some rain to watch out for. That's clearing southeastwards associated with this cold front. Then, briefly, a fine interlude overnight, but the next weather front is appearing and it's going to turn increasingly windy by the start of Saturday. So a damp rush hour for the southeast corner. That does clear though, with some dry and clear weather overnight, for a time at least, before Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales turn wet and windy by dawn. That, of course, will keep temperatures from falling too far, but it's going to be a soggy start to the day for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales. Gusty winds increasing in strength during Saturday as showers replace the rain during the morning, and that wind continues to ramp up into the afternoon. We're talking about 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for the northern half of the UK, particularly over hills and coasts, and the risk for northwest Scotland of 75 mile-per-hour wind gusts later in the morning and early afternoon. For the southern half of the UK, it's going to be blustery with outbreaks of rain across much of England and Wales, but brighter skies do eventually turn up into the afternoon with quite frequent showers. That is apart from the south coast where it stays damp throughout. It's mild in the south, but it's much colder further north as the winds change direction and bring the threat of some wintry showers as we start off Saturday night across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and those showers will be falling as snow above 100 or 200 metres or so. The start of Sunday also sees some wintry showers, but later in the day it's rain showers and it stays blustery, feeling cold on Sunday, milder by Christmas.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello again, I'm Jules Buckley. Still very slow in North Lanarkshire, the northbound M80 junction 6 up to Castle Carey 6A. All lanes are back open following an earlier collision, but it's still seeing queues. 2 lanes shut on the northbound M6 from Gailey up to Stafford South at the moment. That's junction 12 up to 13 queues there at the scene of an accident. Now Cheshire, the westbound M56 seen delays just heading towards the Bowden turn off at junction 7. There's a breakdown there. A lane closure has been put in place, pretty slow going, and still very slow away from Exeter in Devon. The southbound M5 now still 2 lanes coned off near to Oakhampton at junction 31. It's for recovery work there. Hay bales on the road following an earlier lorry fire. The queue is back to junction 29. Routes in Exeter also struggling. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very good afternoon to you on this glorious Friday at Christmas. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, the Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff and the Partygate investigator, Sue Gray, Kel Surprise. She's been nominated to be a Labour peer in the House of Lords. We'll get a reaction to this Jobs for the Girls story throughout the show. And Lord Peter Mandelson is set to become the next UK ambassador to the United States, but is the former arch Remainer and the man who once described the President-elect Donald Trump a danger to the world and a racist. Really the right man for the job. And earlier on today, I paid a little seasonal visit to the BBC.
It'll be freezing this Christmas without you at home.
Yeah, that was me earlier on down at the BBC headquarters. The staff were waving at me, at least I think they were waving. And that was early today as I was blasting out the song Freezing This Christmas ahead of the Christmas chart countdown. And we'll find out where they finish a little later in the show when I speak with the parody song's creator, Chris Middleton. Will it make it to number one? Does that matter? Is the song a winner anyway? And that's all coming up in your next hour. The BBC had a complete and utter sense of humour failure about that song. They have said that they refused to play it on air because, of course, the song called Freezing This Christmas by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers is a parody on the classic from Mud, Lonely This Christmas. Freezing This Christmas was about pensioners losing their winter fuel allowance, and this song, which so far has raised £35,000 and rising, was a charity song to try and help elderly people. The BBC refusing to play it, just like they did with the Sex Pistols with God Save the Queen in 1977, just like they did with Frankie Goes to Hollywood with Relax. The BBC, did they lose the plot or did they do the right thing? Get in touch, tubenews.com/you're saying. Like I say, in about 40 minutes' time, we'll have the song's creator on the show to find out how they got on. But before that, it's your headlines, and here's Mark White.
Good evening. At 5:02, the main headlines from the GB News Centre. Some breaking news, and the US has killed the leader of the ISIS terrorist group in Syria. US Central Command forces carried out an airstrike targeting Abu Yusuf on Thursday. The strike took place in an area previously controlled by the Syrian regime and Russian forces before the recent fall of Bashar al-Assad. Another ISIS terrorist was killed in the strike, according to officials in Washington. A US military spokesman said the strike underscores America's commitment to prevent ISIS regaining strength in Syria and threatening the West. Downing Street has now confirmed that Lord Mandelson is to become the UK's next ambassador to the United States. The Labour peer, who served under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, will take up the Washington appointment as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Sir Keir Starmer said that Lord Mandelson would bring unrivalled experience to the role and take the UK's partnership with one of its most important allies from strength to strength. Dame Karen Pierce, the current ambassador, will remain in post until Donald Trump's inauguration on the 20th of January. 2 men have been charged with assaulting police officers following an incident at Manchester Airport in July. 20-year-old Mohammed Amaz is charged with 2 offences of causing actual bodily harm, one charge of assaulting an emergency worker and another of common assault. 25-year-old Mohammed Ahmad is charged with causing actual bodily harm. They'll appear at Liverpool Magistrates Court on the 16th of January. The Crown Prosecution Service said no police officers would face criminal charges. A 7-year-old girl has died and a teacher and 5 other students have been wounded in a knife attack in the Croatian capital. Police said the attack at a primary school in Zagreb happened just before 10 a.m. today in the Pretko neighbourhood. They confirmed a young male suspect had been detained. The teacher is said to have suffered life-threatening injuries and remains in hospital after undergoing surgery. The Department for Health and Social Care has announced a package of GP funding to help bring back the family doctor. The government is consulting with the British Medical Association on the measures. They include greater flexibility to employ doctors as the Health Secretary vows to reform general practice. Health and Social Care Minister Stephen Kinnock said the plans will deliver better outcomes for patients.
Package of £889 million of investment that we're bringing forward today is really going to help to fix that front door. But investment always has to come with reform. So the negotiations that we'll be launching with the BMA will be based on busting all the bureaucracy and the red tape that they have to deal with. There'll be a patients' charter so patients know what they can expect from the practice that they're registered with. There's going to be much better online access. And we're going to bring back the family doctor. We're going to incentivise surgeries to ensure that people are seeing the same doctor because that's what gets much better outcomes for them.
The Prime Minister says councils should get on with the job of fixing pothole-plagued roads. Sir Keir Starmer said damaged roads can risk lives and cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for car repairs. The comments come as the Department for Transport announces how much each local authority in England will receive to maintain roads in the next financial year. In the budget, £1.6 billion was allocated to local roads funding over the coming year, representing a £500 million uplift. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander said the increase should be enough to fix around 7 million potholes.
We will be releasing 75% of this funding next year to start off with, and we withhold 25% to ensure that councils are reporting back to us on how they are using that money, because we know that some roads at the moment are like obstacle courses, aren't they? You've got huge craters in them, and so what we need to make sure is that those really big safety problems are being tackled first and foremost, but we want councils as well to think strategically about how they use this money in the best way, because it's really important that we get good value for money.
And finally, the Met Office and the RAC are warning travellers to prepare for disruptive weather and extremely busy roads as the Christmas holidays begin. Yellow warnings for high winds have been issued, and parts of the UK could see gusts of up to 85 miles an hour. Millions of travellers now starting their journeys, with motorist agencies warning of very heavy congestion on main roads. Today in particular has been branded Frantic Friday. So listen, if you're stuck in 10 miles of tailbacks, some good news for you. Once he's finished his show, Martin Daubney is going to get out there with his Santa hat and his Christmas ghetto blaster to cheer you up. It's all part of the service here at GB News.
Oh, beautiful, my wife. Whatever you're drinking, I'll have 2 of them. Beautiful stuff. Now, moving on. Sue Gray, the civil servant who investigated, of course, Partygate and went on to become Sir Keir Starmer's controversial Chief of Staff. Well, she's been made a life peer as part of the Prime Minister's 30 new appointments as he attempts to swing the House of Lords his way. And meanwhile, Downing Street has confirmed now that Lord Peter Mandelson will be the next UK ambassador to the United States, with Sir Keir Starmer saying that the Labour grandee will bring unrivalled experience to the role and take our partnership with the United States from strength to strength. However, is the man who once described Donald Trump as a danger to the world and little short of a white nationalist and a racist really the right man to represent us in Washington? Let's cross to Sheffield now and speak to the former Labour advisor Mike Buckley. Mike, welcome to the show. So he's back. He's been exhumed, resurrected. Mandy, of course, Tony Blair's right-hand man, is back in power. Is it the right thing to do?
Yeah, it's a good move. Peter Mandelson's very experienced. He was very involved in the Labour government from 1997 to 2010, and indeed was a key architect of them getting into power back in 1997. You know, he knows our government, he knows the UK inside out. He also knows the international sphere. He worked in trade for the European Union for a time when we were members of the European Union, and he's also very well networked in the US as well. And in terms of the comments he's made about Donald Trump, I mean, one of the odd things, but actually welcome things about Donald Trump, is that he seems to be able to brush off people's insults. You know, there's lots of people working with him, working around him, that said bad things about him in the past for all the obvious reasons, but who he now works closely with. I mean, the most obvious examples to go to is J.D. Vance, who will be his vice president. J.D. Vance a few years ago was scathing about Donald Trump, you know, and indeed said comments similar to the ones you just mentioned from Peter Mandelson, but then Trump went and picked him for his VP, and now he's going to be vice president working alongside him. So Trump does seem able to forgive people who've spoken ill of him in the past.
Is it in the job description of the Labour Party, or at least if you want to be in the top echelons of the Labour Party, you've got to go around calling your opponents fascists or Nazis or a danger to the world or a white nationalist? What planet are they on?
I mean, they are on the planet of people who have heard what Donald Trump has said and have responded accordingly. And I think we all saw how Trump behaved in his first term, and indeed he said some quite dramatic things in the run-up to this term as well. So I think those comments are perfectly reasonable based on what Trump has said about what he intends to do when he's in power. Whether Trump does act in that way or not remains to be seen, because one of the other things that's true about Donald Trump is that he tends to overclaim and under-deliver, as in say he's going to do something that's spectacular or particularly controversial, and then do something that is much more within the realms of normality. I think he likes causing a scene, and I think he also likes scaring his opponents and trying to get reaction that he wants to get, while actually planning to do something that's more mainstream and more reasonable.
So you're saying, as a former Labour advisor, Mike, you're saying that the way Donald Trump spoke makes him a fascist or a Nazi? How?
No, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that he enjoys saying lots of controversial things, and it's perfectly reasonable for some of those people, Mandelson for one, to be able to look at some of the things that Trump has said and say this: if this was enacted, it indicates that he may, be in line with people of that view. But I think we just have to wait and see what Trump's going to do when he gets into power. I mean, obviously, he's said lots of things that he'll do about, deporting people who don't have papers, about ending the war in Ukraine, about taking action in Israel and Gaza. Some of those things may work out incredibly well. And indeed, there are people now saying that the possible ceasefire between Israel and Hamas may be because the Israeli government has decided, we need to act before Trump gets into power. So it may be that the threats that Trump puts out there actually will lead to good outcomes. So we should certainly all hope for that.
Peter Mandelson, as you pointed out, it's fair to say, was he worked for Brussels, basically, or he was in bed with the boys in Brussels. That was his thing. He's very, very fond of the European Union. Does that make him the best person to be our trade envoy, our ambassador to the United States? We're at a crossroads, are we not? Donald Trump's talking tough on slapping tariffs on the European Union. We're in a position to do a trade deal with America, and we should be free to do that without being tethered to Brussels. Is somebody like Peter Mandelson, let's face it, who is a frothing Remainer, able to do that?
Well, Peter Mandelson worked as Trade Commissioner for the European Union, and every member state, so there are now 27 of them, 28 when we were in there, gets to send a senior official to work in the EU Commission at a very high level, which gives each member state the opportunity to have a real impact on policy. So Peter Mandelson worked on trade the European Union, which is a very big job, very important job, representing all 28 of those nations to build trade deals. That gave him lots of experience at a global level in how to put trade deals together, understanding who to talk to, how to set priorities, how to negotiate, basically. So that is one of the reasons that he's got this job, because of his trade experience while working for the EU. That puts him in a good position to be in the US, where it's possible, to be honest, I'm quite sceptical, but it's possible that we will get a trade deal with the US. I'm sceptical not because of Peter Mandelson or his abilities. I'm sceptical because I don't really think that Donald Trump is going to be interested in doing a trade deal with the UK. But again, let's wait and see.
Mike, can I ask you about the spectre of Tony Blair? Peter Mandelson is back, and of course, Mandy was Blair's right-hand man, one of those dark arts, the spin doctors. Tony Blair would love there to be a close relationship between Britain and the United States in a way that benefited Tony Blair. We know that he would like things like digital ID, vaccine passports. Is there a sense that Blair's back and that Mandelson might be his representative?
I don't think so. I mean, Mandelson will be, I know he's close to Keir Starmer personally. He will be there to work for Keir Starmer to represent the interests of the UK. Obviously, Keir Starmer and Tony Blair talk as well. And obviously, Peter Mandelson and Tony Blair work very, very closely together, and no doubt are still in close contact. But we've all got friends in our lives that don't influence how we behave in our jobs. And I cannot imagine that Tony Blair will be either seeking to influence Peter Mandelson or will be successful in doing so, because Peter's very much his own man.
OK, let's see what happens. Thanks for joining us. Great sport, former Labour advisor Mike Buckley, thank you very much, and a very Merry Christmas to you as we move towards that festive day. Now it's time for our greatest and our biggest ever Great British Giveaway this year, and your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash is the biggest cash prize that we've ever given away here at GB News, and it could be yours in time for Christmas. Here's the details that you need to win a whopping festive £50,000 in tax-free cash.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
And the very best of luck with that. And coming up, we'll get the latest on the travel chaos. Of course, it's Christmas. The set to hit the UK today ahead of the big Christmas getaway. Not me. I'm here on your show for you on GB News until Christmas Eve. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
My next guest knew George Carman rather intimately. Indeed, he immediately asked her for her hand in marriage when they first met. Karen Phillips knew Carman from 1986 and was a close friend until his death in 2001. Karen has used court transcripts and personal documents to construct her new book, Get Carman. There it is. And here you are. Karen, thank you very much indeed. So you knew him very well, and actually, he began to write a little bit of an autobiography just in the weeks before his death. And from those pages, I was struck by the amount of uncertainty that there was about the man. This man who was so confident in court, who charmed juries so famously, but in some ways felt that he was an actor, in some ways felt that he was fighting back nerves and uncertainties. Is that true?
I think he was quite worried about every case. It was much more that he was concerned for the client. He always wanted to do his best. He worked so hard to win a case, not really for his personal satisfaction, but because he didn't want to let people down.
His success rate was extraordinary, and, you know, I'll choose my words carefully here, but shall we say that many people were surprised at the time that Jeremy Thorpe was found not guilty. It was astonishing in the case of Jonathan Aitken, for example, that the principal charge against him, which was that he'd been corrupt in arms dealings, I don't think that was ever actually reached during the court. It seems even more surprising today that people who were employed by Mohammed Fayed were believed in the case of Neil Hamilton. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, his results are extraordinary.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:20 on this Friday afternoon as we approach Christmas with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. I'm joined now in the studio by the chairman of Reform UK, Zia Youssef. Welcome to the studio, Mr. Youssef. Can I get your initial reaction straight away, if I could, to the appointment of Peter Mandelson as the UK ambassador to the United States? And, of course, in the past, Mandy has said that Sir Keir Starmer should utilise Nigel Farage as the Trump whisperer. Could there be something in that?
Well, that's up to the Labour Party. I mean, Nigel has been very clear. We've been very clear at Reform that Reform is a party of patriots. We love this country and we'll do anything for this country. So Nigel's been very clear that should he be asked by Keir Starmer, by Mandelson, given he's been given this job, to put in a call to President Trump to see if he can revivify the special relationship that, let's be clear, has come under enormous stress, given Labour sent a delegation out to the United States to campaign for President Trump's opponents, and the appalling things, the frankly childish insults. I mean, you'd struggle to find a member of the Labour cabinet. And Mandelson himself, if you look at these, the Telegraph front page today, has been guilty of this as well, been incredibly insulting of the man who will become now the 47th president of the United States. Nigel Farage has been very clear, country must come before party. If he were asked, he would be very happy. He would be absolutely delighted to do whatever he can to assist in repairing the damage that has been caused by the appalling insults that have been levelled at the president.
Can I also ask you for a quick reaction to the appointment of Sue Gray to the House of Lords? Isn't this a kind of cronyism that Sir Keir Starmer said that he wouldn't do?
Absolutely. You know, Keir Starmer set a benchmark for himself. You know, he said that he was going to be totally different to the he was going to deliver change versus the cronyism of the Tories. He was going to uphold standards in public life, and then he had a donor pay for glasses, spectacles for thousands of pounds. God knows how you can spend thousands of pounds on spectacles, tens of thousands of pounds on designer suits and dresses. And now we're in a situation where what's really interesting about the Sue Gray appointment is that both now, putting her into the Lords, but also the fact that she was one of his first hires, of course, is that we are now in a situation where Pat McFadden and Sir Keir Starmer are becoming very frustrated about the blob, very frustrated that the civil service seem to be blocking a lot of the things that they are trying to do, now saying that they are, Rachel Reeves is demanding a saving of 5 pence on every pound. By the way, that's exactly what Richard Tice was campaigning on as part of Reform's contract with the people universally ridiculed by the mainstream media and by Labour. Now that's what Rachel Reeves's line is. And here's what's interesting. How can you possibly claim that you want to take on the blob, that you want to take on this ridiculously bloated bureaucratic state, and then make Sue Gray your first appointment as his chief of staff? She's, you know, if you want to drain the swamp, to borrow a Trumpism, she is the ultimate swamp creature.
Well, there we go. Now, you've come in today to talk about a new youth movement in the Reform Party. Nigel Farage put a message out on social media last night saying young people love the optimistic, patriotic message of reform, and talking about a surge of young people supporting the party, which goes kind of counterintuitively to what we're told in Britain, and in fact a membership drive offering 10 quid to under 25s as opposed to the normal price of 25 quid. Tell us, what's driving this? Because we're always told to believe that every young person is a woke liberal.
Well, let's be clear about one thing. Young people have been attracted to reform for a very long time. They've been coming to us in their droves. You can see it any time Nigel, and I spend a lot of time obviously with Nigel, he gets mobbed by young people whenever he walks down the street. They see him as somebody who is antithetical. He's the antithesis to exactly that, the sort of woke liberal mindset, the finger-wagging scolding that they get all of the time. But what we've done, therefore, is launch now a under 25 membership, which is just £10 relative to the £25 for a standard membership. All we're doing is responding to the demand that is already there. And our membership growth has obviously been ballistic. You know that we announced we had north of 100,000 members as of a few weeks ago. A year before that, we only had 15,000 members. We've gone from 8% in the polls to between 23 and 25%, depending on the poll, inside 12 months. And I'll say this also, if there are young people listening to this now, the ratio of salaries to house prices is 9 times today. The last time it was this high was in 1876. It's 150 years ago. And by the way, almost nobody owned homes, obviously, back at that point. That's why the numbers were so ridiculous. So we live in a world now where whether it's the Tories or Labour, they've been happy to explode the size of the population. No other party is willing to say, look, house prices are a function of supply and demand. Yeah. This is common sense. We live in Britain now where almost a third of our young adults live at home with their parents. Not only is buying a home totally out of reach, 41% of 18 to 34-year-olds say that they believe they have no chance of buying a home. Renting a home is now out of reach. Reform are very clear. Nigel is very clear. Housing is a function of supply and demand. Yes, we need to build a lot more homes, but we can never build enough homes to meet the demand from the ridiculously explosive growth in population size. So if you look at the last 3 years, for example, we've had 2.5 million net new people arrive in the country, and we built 600,000 new homes under the Tories. And that was as good as we've done in about 4 decades. So the idea that just building more homes is going to be the answer without securing our borders and freezing migration for a number of years is like spraying a super soaker at a forest fire and expecting there to be a positive result. So we have to level the playing field for young people. That's what Reform are going to do. We're going to eliminate income tax below earnings for earnings below £20,000. That means if you're a young person going out to work for the first time, you're going to keep all of the money, and you absolutely should do that. You should not be competing, if you're a young person, with extraordinarily large numbers of people coming from abroad competing for those same jobs that you would be after if you're age 16 or you're age 18 or you're just graduating from university. They'll sort out the university system so you're not going to be saddled and frankly crippled with enormous debts for, in many cases, sadly, university degrees that are of no use to you whatsoever in terms of the job market. Nigel Farage, as our Prime Minister, will make these changes. And that's one of my messages to young people. I know that how hard it is. The economy is absolutely rigged against you. It takes a politician of enormous courage, of enormous conviction, and of enormous intelligence to be able to solve these problems. And the only man who's going to do that is Nigel. And the good news is he's now the bookmaker's favourite to be the next Prime Minister of this country. So please go to our website and join Reform. Come and help us make history.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zia Youssef, the chairman of Reform UK. Thanks for joining us today in the studio here at GB News. Now, brace yourselves, because are you driving home for Christmas? If so, you could be in for a nightmare with the AA warning of long traffic jams and record congestion over the festive period. It's expected that over 23 million drivers are planning a trip, more than the busiest day on record, and that was back in 2010. I'm so glad I'm not one of them, but for more on this, let's speak now to Nicholas Lyes, who's the Policy and Standards Director at the road safety charity IAM Road Smart. Welcome to the show, Nicholas. So it's the same every year, but this year it's going to be worse.
It's going to be worse, yes. Well, thank you for having me. We're expecting the traffic to peak this afternoon, tomorrow, and then again on Christmas Eve. So it's going to be really busy out there. Best thing people can do is plan ahead, make sure you do your vehicle checks, your tyre pressures, your tyre treads, check all of that, coolant levels, oil, wiper fluid as well. People tend to forget that, very important in the winter. And also try and travel outside of peak times, because it is going to be extremely busy out there. And of course, at this time of year, there's not a great deal of daylight.
And it's no better on the trains. You know, we were meant to have got rid of train strikes, right? All that £500 million to train drivers. And yet, Mick the Lynch is back. There could be strikes on the 22nd, the 23rd and the 29th. And that, of course, will pile extra pressure on the roads, because guess what? They're trying to get us out of our cars, but if we can't get on a train, we're going to be taken to the roads anyway.
Well, most people at this time of year will depend on their cars, and you've already got the engineering works that happen on the trains. But if there are strikes or if there's industrial action that is adding to that, then you're just going to put more cars on the road, because that is the only way that you can get from A to B. I think a lot of people, as you mentioned, millions of people are taking longer trips this time of year. The roads are going to be incredibly snarled up. Leave plenty of time and make sure you pack a few things in the vehicle to keep the kids in the back happy, you know, all of those sorts of things. And of course, a fully charged mobile phone if you do happen to break down as well.
As at times like this, you know, you'd be having an extra special nightmare if you've got an electric vehicle. Because, of course, all the cars piling on the roads and the charge points queuing up, that would be a special nightmare, will it not, if you're trying to get a charge point?
Yeah, I would expect charge points to be pretty busy, but actually many of those people that own electric vehicles will have charge points at home. Now, of course, what they don't want to happen is to be stuck on a motorway for several hours if there's an incident. And at this time of year, you do tend to have incidents on the motorway. The best thing that people can do, as I said, is just to prepare before they go, prepare properly and do all those vehicle checks to reduce the chances of you having a breakdown.
Well, Nicholas Lyes, we have to leave it there. It's enough to drive a man to drink, and that's why I always get my missus to drive home at Christmas. Thank you very, very much for joining us. That's the Policy and Standards Director at the road safety charity IAM Road Smart. Thank you very much. Now, loads more still to come between now and 6 o'clock, including, look, check this story out, a hen which has been caught playing chicken with traffic on busy country roads, and as a result has been given a custom high-vis jacket. We'll speak to the owner of this brilliantly named chicken called Billie Jean, and it promises to be quite a thriller. Love it. Speaking of which, let's get your headlines now with the thrilling Mark White.
It's 5:31. The latest headlines from the GB News Centre. US Central Command forces carried out an airstrike targeting Abu Yusuf, the leader of ISIS, on Thursday. They confirmed that another ISIS terrorist was killed in the strike, according to the officials in Washington. A US military spokesman said the strike underscores America's commitment to preventing ISIS regaining strength in Syria and threatening the West. Downing Street has now confirmed that Lord Mandelson is to become the UK's next ambassador to the United States. The Labour peer, who served under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, will take up the Washington appointment as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Sir Keir Starmer said that Lord Mandelson would bring unrivalled experience to the role and take the UK's partnership with one of its most important allies from strength to strength. And Dame Karen Pierce, the current ambassador, will remain in post until Donald Trump's inauguration on the 20th of January. 2 men have been charged with assaulting police officers following an incident at Manchester Airport in July. 20-year-old Mohammed Amaz is charged with 2 offences of causing actual bodily harm, one charge of assaulting an emergency worker and another of common assault. 25-year-old Mohammed Ahmad is charged with causing actual bodily harm. They'll appear at Liverpool Magistrates Court on the 16th of January. The Crown Prosecution Service said no police officers would face criminal charges. A 7-year-old girl has died and a teacher and 5 other students have been wounded in a knife attack in the Croatian capital. Police said the attack at a primary school in Zagreb happened just before 10 a.m. today in the Pretko neighbourhood. They confirmed a young male suspect had been detained. The teacher is said to have suffered life-threatening injuries and remains in hospital after undergoing surgery. The Department for Health and Social Care has announced a package of GP funding to help bring back the family doctor. The government is consulting with the British Medical Association on the measures. They include greater flexibility to employ doctors as the Health Secretary vows to reform general practice. And finally, the Met Office and the RAC are warning travellers to prepare for disruptive weather and extremely busy roads as the Christmas holidays begin. Yellow warnings for high winds have been issued and parts of the UK could see gusts of up to 85 miles an hour. Millions of travellers have now started their festive journeys, with motoring agencies warning of very heavy congestion on main roads. Today in particular has been branded Frantic Friday. You can stay up to date, of course, with all the very latest travel on GB News Radio. Martin Daubney is back after the break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be an unsettled few days, and for the rest of today, with a lot of traffic on the roads, we do have some rain to watch out for. That's clearing southeastwards associated with this cold front. Then, briefly, a fine interlude overnight, but the next weather front is appearing and it's going to turn increasingly windy by the start of Saturday. So a damp rush hour for the southeast corner. That does clear though, with some dry and clear weather overnight, for a time at least, before Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales turn wet and windy by dawn. That, of course, will keep temperatures from falling too far, but it's going to be a soggy start to the day for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales. Gusty winds increasing in strength during Saturday as showers replace the rain during the morning, and that wind continues to ramp up into the afternoon. We're talking about 50 to 60 mile/hour wind gusts for the northern half of the UK, particularly over hills and coasts, and the risk for northwest Scotland of 75 mile/hour wind gusts later in the morning and early afternoon. For the southern half of the UK, it's going to be blustery with outbreaks of rain across much of England and Wales, but brighter skies do eventually turn up into the afternoon with quite frequent showers. That is apart from the south coast where it stays damp throughout. It's mild in the south, but it's much colder further north as the winds change direction and bring the threat of some wintry showers as we start off Saturday night across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and those showers will be falling as snow above 100 or 200 metres or so. The start of Sunday also sees some wintry showers, but later in the day it's rain showers and it stays blustery, feeling cold on Sunday, milder by Christmas.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary King. The southbound M5 in Devon, there are 2 lanes closed, long delays due to recovery work after an earlier lorry fire just near to junction 31 at Oakhampton. Delays though back to junction 29 at Exeter. Buckinghamshire southbound M40, there's a lane closed and delays after a breakdown. It's southbound from junction 5 at Stokenchurch towards 4 at High Wycombe. Leicestershire southbound M1 has a lane closed due to a lorry having a tyre change between junction 21 at Leicester and 20 at Lutterworth. Greater Manchester, southbound M66 partly blocked. Delays building after an accident just before junction 1 at Ramsbottom. And in Staffordshire, the northbound M6, 2 lanes closed and delays after an accident between junction 12 at Gailey and 13 at Stafford South.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. I absolutely love this story. It'll be a joke in Christmas crackers all around the country. Why did the chicken cross the road? Well, a high-vis hen in Gloucestershire may have finally given us the answer, because this hen's name is Billie Jean, and she caused quite a scene crossing the roads of the market town Dursley to lay eggs and grab a snack. Now, Billie Jean is not my lover, but she's much loved by the landlady of the Railway Inn, Sharon Brimble. Sharon, welcome to the show. Absolutely love this story. The age-old question, why did the chicken cross the road? Quite simply, to get to your boozer. Tell us about your wonderful hen.
Well, she's a rescue chicken, and her name is obviously Billie Jean, named after one of the regulars that comes and feeds her and looks after her. And she just starts to wander, and she's wandered further and further afield, goes into other people's gardens, follows the kids up to school, and she caused quite a bit of stir on the social media. So we decided to get her a high-vis jacket so that she would be safe when she crossed the road.
And I understand that one of Billie Jean's favourite snacks is crackers. Not a snack you'd normally associate with chickens, but I guess what regulars in the booze are just like give her a few snacks in there. Look, there she is marching across the road in the high-vis vest. So she just goes walkabout, right? And this is just to keep her safe.
Yeah, she goes walkabout. So yeah, that's to keep her, so people can see her. I've just tried to get hold of her so that she can come and say hello to you, but she wasn't having any of it at all. I think she's fed up of being famous now. She's had enough.
But of course, what every pub needs, Sharon, is a unique selling point. You've got a hen in a high-vis vest. I mean, I've been to a lot of pubs, trust me, in my drinking career. I've never seen a hen in a high-vis vest. So you've got a USP. Has Billie Jean become something of a tourist attraction, or people going there to get a selfie with the hen?
Absolutely, yeah. Funnily enough, saying that, we've had a few today that have come and had their photos taken with her. And you see people just walking up the road, just taking a photo of her when she's across the road. Yeah, she's a little celebrity at the moment.
Now, Sharon, I know I'm showing my age here, and I know it's politically incorrect. But back in the day, dogs used to get a little splash of bitter in an ashtray. Has anybody tried to give Billie Jean a little tipple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not actually Billie Jean, but we have had other chickens, and there was one occasion where we had a brown chicken, and she would sit outside in the smoking area, and someone left their pint, and when they came back, she was having a good slurp of it. So, yeah, like you said, it's not politically correct.
And I guess she might enjoy a drop of the old speckled hen.
Yeah, we don't actually sell that, but maybe I should get some in.
Look, it's a fantastic story. Thank you very much for being a great sport. You know, I love pubs all across Britain. I love anyone that's doing something unique and interesting to get people interested. Very, very well done. You've made it onto national television. Get yourself down the Railway Inn there for a pint and give little Billie Jean a pat on the head. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much. Sharon Brimble, landlady there at the Railway Inn. That is Cam in Gloucestershire. Get yourself down to an excellent booze. I made that joke. I beg your pardon. Now, moving on. If you're in search of some winter sun this year, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hi there. If you're heading off looking for the sun ahead of Christmas, it's largely fine in Spain but unsettled in Greece, whilst the winds feature highly on Saturday in the Canary Islands, with some showers moving through here. Some wet weather for Gibraltar, but for much of Spain, Balearics in particular, lighter winds and some sunshine. A breeze blowing through Italy and into Greece with some heavy rain here, and it stays showery in Greece throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Now, coming up is a festive treat. I'll be speaking with Chris Middleton. He of course, is the creator of the song Freezing This Christmas from Sakia Sasama and the Granny Hormers. Will they make it to the Christmas #1 spot? Did they reach this year's top 40? That's next. I'm Elton Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Donna Ida, who joins us now. And Donna, you look spectacular in your gorgeous denim jumpsuit.
Thank you.
And accessories. And it's important, isn't it, sometimes, just to keep things simple?
I always keep things simple. I travel a lot, I work long hours, and I don't want to think too much about what I'm wearing. So for me, one and done is perfect. Good accessories, fresh hair, nice makeup, and you can go anywhere, including GB News when you didn't know what was happening.
There we
Perfect.
go. Welcome.
Straight off the plane.
Can we ask you some of our top denim questions?
Yes.
Because Stephen Dixon, the presenter of The Breakfast Show who was just on, said that double denim to him is an absolute no-go.
Oh, what does he
Is that true?
Don't have him on again, darling.
OK. We're telling me stacked.
I love double denim.
Really?
I love it. I think it is so cool.
Does it have to be a different tone?
I was going to say double denim, same colour.
Or same
I
tones?
like the for me, I actually do like the same. Think Saint Laurent 70s. There's an amazing one that we're doing that's going to look great on you in the new season. The Joan Jean, we've got the City Slicker shirt. Oh, it's amazing. If it's done well, it's perfect. And I like it in a paler blue, but a good mid to dark. Very chic.
Yeah, you go.
No, well, I was just thinking, little old me, not quite sure
You'd look amazing
what to wear
in
this
it.
morning. How
was a
do
bit
guys
stressed.
pull off denim?
For me, if I was dressing you, I would have put you in a pair of jeans this morning with his amazing jumper, gorgeous watch.
Black, blue?
Black denim I do like. Men don't like it so much. Men like charcoal denim.
Oh, I don't like grey.
Charcoal. I love grey, and the best seller for men is charcoal denim.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:47. You're on the final furlong with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the anti-Sakia Starmer parody song Freezing This Christmas by Sir Starmer and the Granny Hormers has fantastically reached this year's top 40. Now, the song, penned by Chris Middleton and Dean Ager, it criticises the Prime Minister's decision to cut the winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners. And let's give you a reminder once more of this festive.
Freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm.
Now, for some strange reason, I can't think what, its rise to the top of the charts isn't being celebrated by the BBC as they refuse to play the song. So earlier on today, I thought I'd play it to them instead. Well, I'm here today, Emily and Tom, because the Bar Humbug Broadcasting Corporation are refusing to play this song if it gets to #1. It currently is top of the download charts. As you said, it's top of the iTunes charts. I spoke to the creator, Chris Middleton, this morning. By the way, he's coming on my show today at 5:40 p.m. He's got everything crossed that it will be #1. They've raised a staggering £34,000 in donations on their Just Giving page. Every penny of that is going to pensioners this winter. The entire thing is meant to be a protest song, but also it's good-spirited. This lot have completely lost their sense of humour. Do you remember in 1977 they refused to play God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols when that got to #1? Too spicy. They refused to play Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood because that was too spicy. They're doing it again. And guess what? The Streisand effect. If you ban something, guess what? People want it more and more and more. And we've brought a speaker along to make sure that these mealy-mouthed Christmas killjoys are going to hear this song. Should we give them a blast now? Let's
Absolutely.
I've got no place to go. It'll be freezing this Christmas without you at home.
Well, the staff at the BBC, they absolutely loved it. They were waving to us out the window. Well, I think it was a wave. I couldn't make out their hand gestures. But let's talk now to the creator and the songwriter of Freezing This Christmas by Systema and the Granny Harmers, Chris Middleton, who joins us now on the show. Chris, you've certainly galvanised the nation. There's been huge amount of support for your song. So the chart, I believe, has just been read out. The #1 has been read out, has it? And where did you make the top of the charts? Where did you get to, Chris?
Yes, well, unfortunately, we didn't quite make it to Christmas #1, but we did make it into the charts, into the top 40. We were 37th in the charts, meaning that the BBC did have to mention us. And they did mention us. They did say the song name, they did say the band name, but we didn't get a play out, unfortunately, which would have been a nice way to end all this, wouldn't it?
Now, I know it would have been an uphill struggle to get a song to #1. Bear in mind that even when it made the top of the global chart last week, I believe, they wouldn't even read out the name of the artist. They wouldn't read out the name of the song. They wouldn't play any parts that referred to the subject matter. So the entire establishment had been stacked against you, Chris Middleton. But what's happened, I think, is something special and something tremendous. And let's face it, making the top 40 at Christmas is a huge achievement. I know I've been speaking to you over these past few weeks and you didn't expect to ever get to #1, but I think you should be very, very proud of yourself because you've got people talking about a serious topic. What's the feedback been all along? Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, it was never in my mind to even get 1 million views, let alone be in the charts, let alone topping some charts. The whole, it's all just been really, really crazy. But it just shows you, I think, how much the songs resonated with people, the message of it, how much sort of anger there is out there about the government. People wanted it to get to #1 as a way to send a message. But even though it didn't get to #1, it still made it in the charts. We still got in the news. We made a big song and dance about it. And this was an issue that, Labour had brought in the summer, just after they got into power, and they kind of tried to sweep it under the rug. So I think we kind of brought it back into the public consciousness a little bit. We may not have got them to change their mind, but we've certainly ridiculed them. We've certainly, hopefully, embarrassed them publicly. And I think that's why a lot of people got behind it. So thank you to everyone for getting us to 37th. It's absolutely unbelievable to me that we even got that far. Thank you all for your support. It's just been unbelievable.
And Chris Middleton, of course, you had a Just Giving fundraising page. This was all about raising awareness and it was about raising money. What's the current scores on the doors? How much longer have you raised for pensioners?
Well, Martin, my initial fundraiser was set up for £5,000. And even at the time, I thought, God, this is going to look stupid when it gets about £150. But now we've raised over £40,000. The new target is 50,000. Thank you. It's unbelievable, really. The new target's 50,000, and I'm going to keep it open till Christmas. Hopefully we can make up the difference before then. I think that would just be a nice bow on all of it.
And Chris, it's worth pointing out, I mean, for starters, well done, mate. No, you're a real outsider. You basically had this idea when you're walking about. Of course, it's a parody of Mud's Lonely This Christmas, and even the original band members like your version, don't they? Called it cool.
Yes, Rob Davis, the guitarist from Mud, he called it cool. He liked it, which is good to know that I won't be getting sued anytime soon, hopefully. Which you never know with these things. But, you know, it's all for charity. I'm getting no personal gain from this. It was all done in lighthearted fun, and I think most people have seen that. So, yeah, once again, just thank you to everyone for the support and just helping us shine light on this issue. One thing, we may not have got to number one, but from the messages I've received, hundreds, if not thousands now, pensioners out there now know that people support them, even if the government doesn't. And I think that's the most important thing.
You know, I think that is absolutely bang on. I think it has brought people together around the central point. It's brought pensioners together. It's brought a lot of people who really care about them, care about our most vulnerable time at Christmas. That's what the message is. I think it's a wonderful triumph. You know, 37, I think, is a huge achievement. And I always said I was going to raise a glass to you, Chris Middleton, and I'm going to do that right now. Oh, that tastes good.
Funnily enough, I've also got a Negroni here, so...
There you go, mate. Super. So look, enjoy that drink. Well done, Chris Middleton. A tremendous achievement. Thank you for what you're doing. Have a great Christmas. Now, that's all from me now. Don't worry, up next is Tubes & Co., the best debate show in town. Don't forget, I'll be back on Monday. I'm here till Christmas Eve. Now it's your time for your weather. And here's Aidan McGibbon. Merry Christmas.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be an unsettled few days, and for the rest of today, with a lot of traffic on the roads, we do have some rain to watch out for. That's clearing southeastwards associated with this cold front. Then, briefly, a fine interlude overnight, but the next weather front is appearing and it's going to turn increasingly windy by the start of Saturday. So a damp rush hour for the southeast corner. That does clear though, with some dry and clear weather overnight for a time at least, before Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales turn wet and windy by dawn. That, of course, will keep temperatures from falling too far, but it's going to be a soggy start to the day for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales. Gusty winds increasing in strength during Saturday as showers replace the rain during the morning, and that wind continues to ramp up into the afternoon. We're talking about 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for the northern half of the UK, particularly over hills and coasts, and the risk for northwest Scotland of 75 mile-per-hour wind gusts later in the morning and early afternoon. For the southern half of the UK, it's going to be blustery with outbreaks of rain across much of England and Wales, but brighter skies do eventually turn up into the afternoon with quite frequent showers. That is apart from the south coast where it stays damp throughout. It's mild in the south, but it's much colder further north as the winds change direction and bring the threat of some wintry showers as we start off Saturday night across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and those showers will be falling as snow above 100 or 200 metres or so. The start of Sunday also sees some wintry showers, but later in the day it's rain showers and it stays blustery, feeling cold on Sunday, milder by Christmas.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary King. In Devon, the southbound M5 still 2 lanes closed, long delays due to recovery work after an earlier lorry fire just near junction 31 at Oakhampton. Delays still going back towards junction 29 at Exeter. In Surrey, the anti-clockwise M25 2 lanes closed and delays after an accident just after junction 8 at Reigate. In Buckinghamshire, the southbound M40, there's a lane closed and queues at the moment after a breakdown. Southbound from junction 5 at Stokenchurch towards 4 at High Wycombe. In Cheshire, the southbound M6, there's a lane closed after a breakdown between junction 17 at Sandbach and 16 at Stoke-on-Trent. And in West Yorkshire, the westbound M621 has a lane closed and delays after a vehicle fire near to junction 1 at Beeston.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9.